this might be over pretty quickly now if Seoul can strike yet another.
Ooh, but Florida responding in a big way.
My God.
Vic fighting the duel here.
To the skies goes Zunba.
That's going to be it. A really solid attack round for Florida.
Florida's doing so much work right now. Seoul will take the series.
A pretty resounding win for Florida Mayhem.
Seoul Dynasty. They're not done yet, Matt.
We are back live from the Blizzard Arena, and what a hump day we've had so far. How are you guys doing out there? We got some fresh faces jumping out of work early to come watch the action live here in Los Angeles. And if you're just joining us, it was the Philadelphia Fusion walking away with a 2-1 victory over the San Francisco Shock. Now we're going into our second match of the day. Florida Mayhem is 0-2. They're going up against the 2-0 Seoul Dynasty. And once again, I brought in the analyst desk. We got Brent, Sideshow, and Zoe is back with us once again.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be back here and super excited for this very match because I happen to know that Seoul is bringing something new to the table. Ooh, tease. Aw.
I'm looking forward to this matchup. Sideshow, before we get into game number 2, for anyone that missed the first match and needs to go back and watch VODs, which of those 4 games do you watch?
Oh, which do you watch? I think watching Oasis and just seeing the phenomenal performance of Shadowburn and Carpe and how that duo works. And you also got to see Fraggy on Reinhardt. Fraggy, if you know me on Reinhardt, that was fun. So I think you would go back and watch that.
I'd make an argument for Iconvolt in particular. I think Carpe's performance, outstanding stuff. Like we mentioned him, MVP player of the game. The guy's a crazy hit scan player. It's got to be Iconvolt for me.
I can vote for you. I like it. There's a lot of great plays so far, and I'll be honest, right now we are buying Seoul Dynasty some time before these walkouts. So I know a lot of people just watched that last segment. So far, let's talk about players that are in the running for MVP. It's only been 1 week and now 1 match here in week number 2. We're about to see Florida Mayhem, Seoul Dynasty. Any of these players in the running for overall MVP?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've got the entirety of Seoul Dynasty as a roster. They have such incredible players across the board. They're all going to be contenders for this MVP spot at the end of the day, and they're coming up against Florida Mayhem. Florida Mayhem have also got Logix. They got Tavik. Anyone could really step up in this.
You're pretty loose with your MVP awards, aren't you?
Here's
an MVP.
They're all over
There's
the
an
place.
MVP. For me, it comes down to 3 players, I think, on Seoul Dynasty that you really have to be looking out for. But as their performance over the entire season goes, I'll be watching Fleta. He's been phenomenal so far. Ryuje Hong has always been an amazing player and is part of why the core of this team works so well. And Toby as well is excellent and really part of why that support duo and why Jae Hong's able to get so much work done.
Fantastic players to keep your eyes on moving forward. For now, let's catch you up with the schedule. As we mentioned, we started here with San Francisco going up against Philly. Well, it's Philly now improving to 2-1. Seoul Dynasty looking to be the first team to go up 3-0, and they're going to have to get through Mayhem to accomplish it. So let's start things off here by welcoming our first team to the main stage. Please give it up for the Florida Mayhem. Now Florida is coming into this match led by the big man Swoosh. Look at Tim's shoulders. Maniton's got the wiggle down. Now Florida, they've lost both their matches. They fell to London and Boston, but they did manage to take a map off the all-Korean lineup from the London Spitfire. So Sideshow, let's look back. We've seen 2 matches from these guys. What issues have they had?
This team seems to be struggling to find their style in this meta at the moment. They've always been a team that seems to get a lockdown on how to play in a certain patch and then perfects it. But at the moment, they're struggling. We've seen their supports, a lot of hero swapping coming out from Zebasai, and Zebasai and Zupe in general just aren't having the same punch that we've seen from a lot of other kind of Zen Mercy combos, throughout this season. I think the player to watch is the guy on your screen. He needs to step up and have MVP level performances. Tweak has to go huge here.
Yeah, and one of the players who definitely had those kind of performances was Logix. He was one of the main reasons why they did win that 1 map against the London Spitfire, and that's something Boston Uprising really had to, give credit to. They tried very hard to shut down Logix, and that's how they actually managed to have such a convincing 4-0 result over the guys from Florida Mayhem.
Gonna need big games out of your DPS players. Keep your eyes on Tavik and Logix once again. As you look at the starting lineup, who are you keeping your eyes on, Bren?
For me personally, I think Saicha's already hit the nail on the head to Vic. He needs to step it up. I want to see him in this game having a strong performance against one of the best teams in the league.
Florida Mayhem's coming in prepared. They'll need to get everything on the same page if they want to take down their opposition, though. It's time to introduce arguably the strongest team in the Overwatch League. Give it up for the Seoul Dynasty. Seoul coming into this match unbeaten so far with a 2-0 record. First, they took down the Dallas Fuel on our opening day in an epic 2-1 match, then went on to defeat the Gladiators 4-0. So, Bren, let's talk about Seoul. Why is this such a juggernaut squad?
So it's not just the fact that they've got masterclass players in every single role, but it's also the fact that they've got such incredible adaptability on the fly throughout their games. They can adapt to most situations with whatever roster they choose to field at the moment. And now we're going to see them as well, the fact that they've got so many different substitutions they can use in terms of what DPS plays they want to use, what flex roles they want to use, even supports as well coming into this. It makes them very difficult to prepare for and one of the toughest teams in this league.
Yeah, we saw just during that walkout some unfamiliar faces. We're going to see Guido and Zephyr in the lineup for today. And the coach told me that they plan on using more of their subs this week. So we're going to see a lot more of that. And the future lineups will actually be based on the performance these new players are showing during this week. And surely that means that we're going to see a lot of really good shows on that stage.
It's good to see Kuki back in the lineup as well. It looks like Miro is on the sideline, at least for this first match. Sideshow. Speaking about their new players, there is one of them, Guido, as well as Zephyr. For anyone who hasn't seen them play at the regular season so far, what should we know about these guys? Because they've been around playing in South Korea for quite a while.
Yeah, Guido's been with this team for quite some time. He's actually known as the Apex Season 3 Finals MVP for his play on Tracer in that particular match, but also throughout the whole season with them. He has a very team-based style, very good at being able to receive calls and play within the team's style. But this time, from the looks of their roster, it looks like they're going to field him on Mercy alongside Ryu Jaehong. This is a slightly different look. We haven't seen him on Mercy. He did occasionally fill the support role for the team, but this is something brand new. And Zephyr as well, fantastic off-tank that has already won awards. He's already won the Seoul Cup for this team last year, so he does have experience with this roster.
All right, so new faces for the regular season, but old veterans here. Guido, you get an MVP award on Tracer. Today,
Yep.
They're putting you on Mercy. This squad is just too stacked. Bren, let's talk about how you overcome this stack if you're the Florida Mayhem. If you're looking to take down the top dogs, how do you get the job done today?
Yeah, so I mean, we briefly mentioned, we touched on it in previous games as well. Fleta is one of the star players for Seoul Dynasty, and I feel like they need to, in the same vein that other teams try to shut down Logix on the Florida Mayhem to try and bring his team down, they need to do the same for Fleta now. They need to shut him down, make sure he doesn't have these incredible performances that he's had, and maybe then Florida Mayhem will find a weakness that they can exploit and hopefully win a few matches.
So is this even possible? How do you shut down Fleta?
Honestly, this is going to be really, really hard. It means Tvik has to go toe-to-toe with him, or they need to find a way around that to somehow devote those resources to actually shut down Fleta. It's not going to be easy for them. However, Seoul, I did talk to them. They did say that one of the biggest strengths Mayhem always had and will always have is the team cohesion. Those guys have been playing with each other for a long time. So let's see if that's going to work in their favor, going up against some of the players from Seoul Dynasty we haven't seen, so maybe they can take advantage of that.
All right, it's the third matchup for both of these teams. Here's a look at our starting players. Florida Mayhem, Seoul Dynasty, ready to go right now. Let's send it backstage to our casters. We got Mr. X and Uber.
Now, Matt, is there any universe in which we can't kind of liken this particular matchup with these rosters to the Rams last game of the normal season against the 49ers, where they got smashed, but they didn't play any of their starters? Is this Seoul Dynasty just letting go of some of the bigger names and giving them a bit of a rest?
I don't know, because they still have Jaehong in the lineup, right? You still have Fleta, Munchkin as well. I know these are guys who are going to be pretty consistent for Seoul Dynasty throughout the season. We can take a look at some of the maps we're going to see in this series, kicking things off with Dorado. But you do have some new faces, right? No, Guido comes in. He will probably play support like the desk alluded to. You have two new tanks in the lineup with Zephyr and Kuki. So it's interesting. They're playing around with some of the pieces, seeing what they got.
The last time I saw Zephyr was actually in Germany at the last Takeover 2 event. He was playing for Cloud9 at the time with Kaiser. Obviously, that team never really worked out, but pretty much as soon as Zephyr got back to Korea, he subbed in for Guido, funnily enough, for the OGN Super Cup, and then he remained a part of that roster. Now Lunatic Kai have become Seoul Dynasty. So this was a long time in the making, and he definitely has been a presence on the team. He's a very potent flex tank. We even got to see him play Widowmaker for Cloud9. We might see a very different look here, given the other guys on his team. Cough, cough. Fleta, of course, has shown his Widowmaker is astounding. Yeah. But again, speaking of that pick, we've seen no less than 3 players on the side of the Mayhem try Widowmaker so far to date, and it hasn't really ever gelled properly.
Yeah, I think, Zoe kind of mentioned that Seoul Dynasty thought that the thing that the Florida Mayhem could bring into the series that could really kind of help them Now, Hang is that they have this team cohesion, and we haven't really seen that as much consistently from the Florida Mayhem, right? We've seen like really good maps and really good team fights, but then we've seen some that are kind of all over the place. You need to see them put it together over the course of a whole game.
Listen, I understand that people generally equate time spent together as a roster with being cohesive, but the meta changes. The environment you play in changes, and if you watch the way that Florida's been playing, it doesn't look like they are gelling super well, especially the communication between their tanks and, of course, the DPS there. We've seen some, disjointed engagements, especially, Logic is a player that likes to roam far and wide to flank. This often means that he doesn't get information about what's happening in the fight. And then, we'll try to call for an engage or, say I'm coming in when it's maybe not the right time. So keep an eye on that. That's what we want to look out for here. This is how you benchmark a team like the Mayhem, Matt. You put them up against the best and you see how they perform.
We thought Guido would play the Mercy. He will actually play Zenyatta. They'll have Jaehong play Mercy.
Oh, for real?
And Fleta, he's usually the 76 for this roster, and Munchkin, who's the Tracer, they'll switch roles. So very different look here from Seoul Dynasty on defense at the beginning.
Yeah, Swish dropped down, then straight back up there. Is again essentially trying to tickle Jaehong a little bit, force him back, force him again to shift out of the way. Obviously, it's a small window where you can take advantage of the absence of that Mercy. Logix is flanked very, very far, by the way. He's up above Swoosh, but right now, the payload's on the move. That's the most important part. Solar testing the waters here. Eventually, they know they're going to need to start the fight. The question is, Matt, where do they engage from?
It seems like they're letting Florida just kind of move the payload up into the choke here. They're going to play from a little bit farther back, as you see Florida just putting some shots into Swoosh, just forcing him back a little bit. It'll be Manitin going through this archway underneath. You can see leading the charge as Tavik is able to pick off one. He needs to have a monster series if Florida's going to contend, right? I mean, Tavik can play so many different heroes at a high level. Seeing his Widow play now.
We've been waiting for this for a while. We know Tavik, everyone's talked him up, but we've only been able to run on the fumes of how much of a versatile player he is. We haven't seen these, earth-shattering performances from him thus far, but that was a beautiful opening. Not only did they get rid of Guido also, but Zephyr got desuited by Tavik there. So Seoul had nothing to really defend with now. It's going to be more aggression. Look at the preemptive use of the Valkyrie coming forward here. Zephyr's was hoping for something a bit more, but the damage has been done.
Yeah, they pop Valkyrie, they push on through that right-hand side. They're able to pick up 2 kills, then start their way back towards the cart, but it's going to be Jaehong using his own Valkyrie, bringing 2 members of Seoul Dynasty back into the fight. May have been a little bit too early on the Valk for the Florida Mayhem. Zebo's able to bring Logix and Zupe back in, but see if that's enough.
This has been good stuff so far. No one's been able to really tickle Tavik at the moment. You saw maybe a token attempt by Fleta to get up towards him, but it's not been enough. They get the checkpoint, and the Transcendental is also used by Guido. Seoul Dynasty go through both of those support ultimates and get very little done with it. This is good time to start for the Florida Mayhem.
Yeah, that's huge for Florida. I believe Guido actually used the Transcendence, thinks there's going to be some players there for Seoul Dynasty to get back onto the payload, and they just back out. The payload just had to move basically an inch at that point to take checkpoint A. So be Florida Mayhem taking checkpoint A, 4 minutes and 15 seconds. A lot of time here. Keep advancing the payload. Fleta now will go over to Widowmaker. Try and battle Tavik.
Yep, Manitou was hoping to provoke something like this actually, just by testing that high ground, maybe, getting Kuki to try and jump down. They weren't able to pick off that Winston entirely, and Zephyr's going to be able to get back to safety. But Florida are essentially unscathed after that first little testing of trading of blows. Tavik might be in trouble though, he's cornered in this room, maybe slightly out of position. Gets the health back with a Primal Rage, he's going to be pasted up against the walls. One of the more macabre minerals you're going to see in this game. But still, it's just the one. Swoosh now falling to the tactical visors. So we are seeing Seoul dig deep in the pockets here for some ultimates, man.
Yeah, Zebasai does use Valkyrie. He's able to bring 1 member of the Florida Mayhem back up into the fight. The payload still advancing here as Manitin staying alive on it. Not for long, though. He will get demeched. I believe you just had Munchkin on top on the 76, just doing so much damage from above, and Tavik still running the Widow. Maybe you see like a Genji here if you really want to try and pressure off that high ground, because we saw in that last fight with Swoosh and Manitin, they went up top. I believe Logix on the balcony was going up top as well. Tavik was just an easy target for the tanks of Seoul Dynasty down on the ground.
For an attacking Widowmaker, your sightlines aren't nearly as good as what you would have on defense. Tavik kind of has a setup on the archway from the first door where the checkpoint is, or in the low ground. And Fleta has a few more options here. Obviously, in my opinion, the peak angle advantage, he can peek over, and not so much of himself is showing. Infocyte time's out now, and Solar purely use that for reconnaissance purposes. No attempt at starting a fight as of yet. Fleta's still looking for Tavik.
Yeah, but look at this angle that Fleta can take on Tavik. Tavik is in such a tough spot, just shooting up after the high ground. Not many angles he can go to. You see Manitin there launching a self-destruct into the sky.
He hits those.
Yeah,
Fleta hits those.
Tavik actually takes out Jaehong, so Soul, they'll lose their Mercy. There you see Fleta able to take out Tvik. Knew he was roaming around in that courtyard. Fleta with another. Oh, make it 3.
Yeah. The guy's got too much space to work with. You can see that the rest of Florida, when Fleta knows that Swoosh is actually jumping back down to the rest of his team with half HP, he knows he's not about to be threatened in the next, 3 to 6 seconds. There's no one on Florida that can really get in his face. So he peeks aggressively. He starts, really getting out over the edge, knowing that he can stay out in the open for prolonged periods and ensure he's getting these big kills.
Fleta's able to take out Tvik yet again. So it's such a difficult Widow versus Widow battle. We talked about it from the offensive side to defense. Now they get everybody back up here. The Soul Dynasty. You have your Valkyrie, you have your Tac Mines, you have your Infrared Sight again. Tvik's going to get his now. He's going to use it. So Mayhem going to get a ton of vision. It will be the same thing out of the side of Soul Dynasty. Zebo does have this Valkyrie for the Florida Mayhem. We'll see when he uses it. He's going to use it to attack.
Manatee dropping down now. We're going to have self-destruct here for Zephyr if he chooses to use it. Swoosh is backed away, so it's time for Fleta and Munchkin to get a bit more aggressive from the high ground here. Munchkin low, forced to back away though. The healing is there for Jaehong, but he definitely had to break line of sight.
Yeah, and Zebo actually brings Swoosh back into the fight, but gets headshot in Valkyrie by Fleta right away. So you're only able to get 1 res.
Second time today we've seen that.
Now, coming into this next fight, the Mayhem, you'll have your Transcendence. You have a Pulse Bomb here for Logix. But you can see there's not a lot of area where Tracer can get to this high ground. It has to go in such a long flank, and you see where Fleta is playing now.
So safe.
Well, he's so far back, right? And Tvik has to play cautious because he's looking at him, just trying to see if he's up top on the high ground.
Tvik has gotten little done in this second phase on that Widowmaker. And again, Kuki hunts him down. More than happy, by the way, to use the Primal Rage to deal with him. And Zorpe hangs around a little bit too long. Now Soul are starting to put the brakes on the Mayhem.
It's the same way they got rid of Tvik the last time. Everybody from Florida jumps up top. Kuki just jumps down low, goes into Tvik one-on-one. This time pops the Primal Rage, takes him out, and then pushes the rest of the Florida Mayhem back. So when you don't have that Widowmaker on your side, right, you're just basically pushing up top with both tanks and your Tracer. It's kind of like a 3v5 for the Florida Mayhem up top. Don't like your odds.
Okay, not a lot of changes in the Mayhem's team composition in the last few moments. Nothing's been working thus far. Fleta peeks forward early, but it's going to be challenged by Tvik up quite close. This is, yeah, a tense situation, but Tvik opts out of it. He knows he needs to move that payload across. It's going to be Jaehong now going for the Valkyrie here. Primal Rage for Swoosh, just to try to sow some discord in the back ranks. Tvik's down though. That's really going to hurt the Mayhem. They're running out of their options and their tools to get the job done. It's going to be Logix now to fall, and the 2 big names are out of the picture. Logix brought back. Self-destruct from Manatee here, but Fleta is very safe from that explosion. You can see that Zephyr's going to play in that low ground here with Kuki. The Transcendence doesn't bother them too much. They're not trying to get killed, they're trying to stay alive and hang on. Fleta to back away, but Zumbe's brought back up. Another headshot in. Guido wants to follow up this damage. Logix is down. Manatee doesn't get away with his mech. This is looking bad for the Mayhem, man.
Yeah, you got Munchkin coming off the spawn with the Tac Visor. Guido here on the Zenyatta doing a lot of work.
Oh, kill him!
Tough spot. Looks like Tvik just trying to get on top, keep this one going for the Florida Mayhem. It does not look likely. Swoosh will fall. It'll be a defensive hold here by Soul Dynasty. The Florida Mayhem get that first checkpoint. They almost get towards checkpoint B. Their push just got stalled out for so long. They were not really able to get any of those picks up top, relying so much on Tvik on the Widowmaker, right? And the angle is so difficult.
The Mayhem knew coming into a match like this, they would have to get in the face of Soul and try and play a bit of this no respect Overwatch. I mean, to be fair, Soul, are subbing out some of their big players and, maybe playing that same kind of no-respect game. But the fact of the matter is a Widowmaker from Tvik wasn't able to find much kills there as well. To open fights up, Fleta had a lot of freedom. All he has is an internal timer on, the rocket jump of Swoosh. He knows where Manatee is at the time. He knows when he can be aggressive and when he can be defensive. Sometimes he's left on his own up on that high ground. Fleta is when his tanks want to drop down. He knows that if his tanks can, lock up the enemy tanks, he can do whatever he wants. And we saw moments like that. If you give that guy space, he is going to decimate you.
Well, with Fleta playing the Widowmaker up top, obviously he has high ground advantage over Tvik.
Sure.
Now he has a 76 who's
What does
also
that mean in a Widowmaker battle,
now.
though? What does high ground advantage mean to you in Widow versus Widow situation?
Well, I mean, just kind of think of it in your own shoes playing at home, right? I mean, you're looking up towards that balcony. There are tanks in the way. There's defense matrix there. And you can only really kind of get a look at, like, the top of Fleta's head. Like, your entire body's shown there. There's really not much you can do there if you're Tvik. I mean, there's just a lot working against you.
A change of tact here, perhaps, for the Florida Mayhem now on defense. We will be looking at, in my opinion, a very safe Soldier 76, Ana, and the Tracer composition. Florida are a team that are going to use that Ana more than most right now, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Zupe is a generally more passive player. You see that on Zen, he doesn't really go too deep for these kills, and he prefers not to try and be a star, but on Ana, this guy has much more impact. He's very, very good at keeping his team up and playing back. It's passive, but again, there's a solid defensive aspect to this comp.
Yeah, if the Florida Mayhem could, they would probably like to run Zebo on the Lucio and Zipe on Ana. That's where those two players feel the most comfortable in terms of supports. But we see Seoul Dynasty at the beginning. Munchkin will be playing the Genji. Fleta will be playing Pharah here on defense. So a lot of pressure is going to go on Logix, right? You can get Genji in his face, can be constantly annoying. Oh, not much right now as Munchkin falls, but with that Pharah Genji combination, you can cause a lot of problems for a hero like Soldier 76.
Again, 76 and Ana can put a lot of pressure on Pharah here, and a Mercy, no less. So Fleta does have to be careful, as does Jaehong here, about what they're getting themselves into. Zephyr, nicely done. You see how he isolates, pushes him back away from the rest of his team. Now the bit of the follow-up is coming in from the Dynasty. We see Zephyr drops down, and then back up. Tvik dropping the Guido. He's done an excellent job on Zen so far in this match, Matt. Making a lot of opportunities happen, and now it's boots on the ground kind of fighting. Zupe's finally down to Fleta, but Fleta fell in the meantime. It was a delayed kill from the rocket travel time.
Yeah, they're able to get Zupe back in the fight, so you're going to have both supports up here for the Florida Mayhem. They use Attack Visor at the beginning of this as well. Manatin looks like he's going to use a self-destruct just to get a mech back. The first defensive stand for the Florida Mayhem goes quite well.
Yeah, it's a weird fight because the Mayhem refuse to commit to the low ground. You can see that Seoul are trying to pull them down and say, come on, engage on us, come on. We got a low health tank that just dived in. Surely you want to follow us up. But the Mayhem are adamant that playing up on the high ground is going to benefit them, and it does because they've got the 76 and the Ana that can really like to sit tight up on high. We've got two Valks coming up here, Matt.
Well, the bad part for the Florida Mayhem is you don't have two sustain ultimates, right? You don't have that Zenyatta with Transcendence on the side for the Florida Mayhem. So as soon as Zebo uses Transcendence,
this could be nasty.
They don't really have anything for a blade, and here comes Munchkin with that blade. He's able to cut through one, cut through two. You get Logix out. He's just hunting for Zebo up in the sky. They're going to res Logix back into the fight. But the Valkyrie for Seoul Dynasty providing a lot of healing, keeping everybody up.
Yeah, I mean, those reses are going to be there. Zebo knows he can't keep his team alive through a Dragon Blade, so he's going to have to res them after the fact. And now there's going to be a second round of fighting with the players being resed up. But again, for Florida, this is what happens if you don't want to play that Zenyatta. You're right. A Valkyrie heal is not enough to cover over what a Dragon Blade can do. A Transcendence there would have made life a lot easier for the Mayhem in weathering the storm. Instead, they had to use a Valk just to res the players who died anyway because the rest of their team weren't around by that point.
And now you get Zupe to switch off of Ana. He'll go over to Zenyatta. So now you're going to have to rebuild up towards the ult. See Fleta here from behind. Does have a pulse bomb. He's going to jump right on down. Oh, he's going to get Logix with it. That's a huge kill. Logix did have Attack Visor. Maybe you would have invested into the fight if you're the Florida Mayhem, but just both tanks for the Mayhem here on the payload. They will both fall, so Seoul Dynasty should be able to take point A.
Confident play. The Dynasty were already flanking behind the Mayhem before they got in that first checkpoint. It was unlikely that the Mayhem were going to expect that kind of aggression. Now Tvik's going to switch over towards the Widowmaker now, try and make use of the high ground in the same way that Fleta did previously.
And Munchkin's going to have a blade for the next fight. Big two ultimates online for Seoul Dynasty. You have Transcendence and you have Dragon Blade.
I think they're like playing with their food right now. We can see the Seoul are so deep in enemy territory here. They're trying to hunt down here the Valkyrie of Zephyr's side. Haven't quite caught it, but Kuki's looking for him with the fists. No, Zephyr's going to get desuited, taken down. Kuki realizes the fun's over. The Valkyrie was a little bit too much. He couldn't get the damage done through it.
Oh, and that's huge because Logix actually kills Munchkin at the beginning of the fight. Didn't catch it there, but he actually did pop his Dragon Blade, so he actually didn't get a chance to slice on through. So it's a big kill there from Logix. He had no support ultimates to really block that Dragon Blade if Munchkin got in.
Fleta again behind. He's been flanking so much this game. Pulse Bomb this time not quite connecting, but Fleta did fall to Logix. His attempt at a foray into enemy lines proves to be fruitless. And again, Seoul probably going to be happy just to sit around the payload and try and trade, but again, they can't go aggressive for a little bit.
Okay, so now we get Fleta versus Tvik in the Widowmaker battle. This time it's going to be Tvik with that high ground. Let's see how he plays around it, and conversely on the other side, how Fleta decides to get the advantage here over Tvik. It looked like he was going for a long flank at first. Stop here, put down some shots. You see support ults being used by both sides. You have the Transcendence and Valkyrie coming out of Seoul Dynasty. Zebo uses his own Valkyrie here for the Florida Mayhem. Zupe still holding on to that Transcendence.
Now 4 ultimates used for the Mayhem. That's a heck of a lot to be going on with here. They're really digging deep to try and make this work. And Zebo's forced to try and heal as many people as he can. Tvik so low, 1 HP. Fleta forced to back away though. The Transcendence is on the ground here for the Mayhem. And they need to continue to brawl this out to make something of this healing. With Jaehong out of the picture, Fleta may just have to back away. A bit of extra damage would be nice, but it's not going to get him closer to his ultimate because he already has it. So maybe a recon visor to set up for the next play. But Seoul have been stumped thus far.
Yeah, Seoul Dynasty does get the Florida Mayhem to invest both support ultimates in, so now you have Munchkin with this Dragon Blade yet again. You know that there's no Valkyrie, you know there's no Transcendence. How does Florida go about stopping this?
Florida used one ultimate, didn't get any kills, used two, had players drop down, forced to go for the Transcendence, and then of course, actually was after the Valkyrie came out. They used it all there. Seoul have a bit to work with its Vic going down. They've already got a man advantage, so the ultimate advantage surely is going to give them the edge of this fight. Zope down, Zebasai soon to follow. Both supports fall to the hand. The keen edge of Munchkin as he makes sure he locks onto the key targets and delivers them a very, very swift demise.
Yeah, once they get that early pick on to Vic, you know the Florida Mayhem potentially going for that resurrection. There you see Munchkin going right over the top of the building, pops the blade. I believe he has a damage boost from Jaehong as well, and they just dive. They get extremely aggressive on the Florida Mayhem. But now all you have for Seoul Dynasty is you have that Primal Rage. You're going to self-destruct here. Logic's going to come out swinging here with Attack Visor.
See if he can connect though. There's shielding and there's people breaking the line of sight. Swoosh can afford to get early on. That's the initiation down for the Mayhem side so far. Self-destruct from Manhattan doesn't gain him anything. If Fleta still has room to breathe, there's no tanks going to be jumping on him right now. This is all Fleta's playground, but he's not connecting the shots. He has to do this. Zebo falls. Zipper gets a little bit of a better self-destruct than the Mayhem are able to, and Logix finally falls to Fleta, who just really was able to sit out in the open and take whatever shot he wanted. Play cocky, because he knew he had the opportunity to do so. Swoosh, I think, is looking for him now, but it might be a little bit too late. The damage has already been done by the free-flying Widowmaker, and Manhattan, the last man on the payload here. An attempt for Swoosh to drop back in. The last vestiges of his anger have now abated. It's Tavik forced to recall off of it, and that is going to be the job done. Seoul Dynasty with a very commanding first map. Despite being slowed down, you can see even when they're losing fights, they're trying to draw ultimates out of Florida. Florida are very nervous. They're ready to let those ultimates go just to stay in the game.
Yeah, once Florida's in a position where they have to keep bodies on the payload, just a ton of space opens up for Fleta to go off on the Widowmaker there at the end.
I mean, there's food for thought here. It's safe to say for the side of the Mayhem, you see they walked out confidently to start with. You've got to be confident in this kind of matchup. But against Seoul, it takes more than just a facade. You've got to deliver. Let's see if map 2 has it.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Intel and Omen by HP. the most successful players in Overwatch history. It's the Seoul Dynasty.
It's gonna be fantastic to see.
우승해서 서울 다이너스티라는 이름을 널리 알리고 싶습니다. 당연히 저희 팀이 가장 잘하는 팀인 것 같습니다.
And they have added some unbelievable DPS players. Letter before is a guy to watch.
팀이 가지고 있는 목표 또한 우승이죠.
Blink and you'll miss it. Seoul will take the series.
게이머들이 최고다고 생각합니다. 성적이 보여주는 것 같아요.
This team it has a fantastic core and base of teamwork.
개인 목표는 역시 세계 최고의 플레이어가 되는 게임 목표 역시 세계 최고의 팀이 되는 것입니다.
So many stars on this lineup.
팀을 위해서 제 목표는 당연히 우승이죠. 우승을 위해서 모든 것을 할 거고 많은 지원을 할 겁니다.
You know, for the sake of storytelling sometimes, Matt, we dance around the idea of, you know, teams, it's close between Seoul and the rest of the world, all these Korean rosters, but I think Guido said it very well there. Our history and our record speaks for itself. Right now, especially in Overwatch, Korean players are the best in the world. And speaking of some of the best, Toby coming in for Guido.
Yeah, so Guido gets that first map of play. Now Toby comes back, so you have that strong support core with Toby and Jaehung. I thought Guido looked.
I'll tell you what it is, Matt. Jaehung sat there like, yo, fam, I don't want to play Mercy anymore. Toby, what's up? Come back on, boy. Let me play some Zinyan. Let me get some Ana up in this.
It's highly probable. That definitely could have happened. Dorado, it went the way of Seoul Dynasty to kick things off. Now we go on to Horizon Lunar Colony for map number 2. Now, Florida Mayhem, they were pretty competitive there in that first map. I think they've been pretty competitive in all their series. It seems like one or two fights just don't go their way, and that's when things spiral out of control. They can never really get that big hold, so to speak.
The Mayhem haven't had it easy in the start to this season, of course. If you recall, they went up against the Spitfire earlier on, and they actually beat them on that Dorado map. And it does look like it was a map that maybe, you know, they were looking a little bit better on, but I've had a chance to spend a little bit of time with the Mayhem over the last week or so, and there's definitely a lot of things that they're actively trying to work on. They're aware. Horizon Lunar Colony, a map for them, which, you know, as far as history has spoken, has not been stellar. You know, again, a situation of trying to make sure that they're making these dives and they're putting them together correctly. But Seoul looks so good on this map previously. You can see they've got a very good understanding of how to play, especially the defense.
I think one of the more impressive things from Seoul Dynasty has been that they're able to sub in all these players. They still look so coordinated, right? Like, I mean, we see other teams, you know, they'll make subs, you know, game after game, and it seems like, you know, one part comes in, one part, you know, comes out, and it just kind of throws things off a little bit. It seems like this team's just throwing everybody in there, and they still look like a well-oiled machine. We Seoul Dynasty here on defense to kick things off, so we usually see like an Orisa here, you know, maybe on defense. We saw Orisa Roadhog a lot, right? You can use the halts and the hooks to bring players up on top.
Junkrat for traps to stop dives.
Yeah, just blow them up. But it looks like you're going to see a little bit of a different look from Seoul Dynasty. They'll be running Winston, Diva, Genji Tracer, you know, pretty much a standard dive. We'll see what Florida decides to do on offense. Still some time, change things around. I expect Logics to play Tracer. Swoosh will probably go over to Winston here, so I mean, maybe you see okay, so
definitely Winston. Swoosh likes to hover, Doomfist did not. Hero select.
I like this though. It could be a triple DPS. You know, you kind of have Tavik as, you know, Sombra, who can also act as a support for the Florida Mayhem.
So there's risk here. There's risk for Seoul because they're not running an Orisa or, you know, like a static shielding tank. So Zebasai, if he connects these shots, can be hugely impactful. The problem is we've just not seen that to be the case so far from the Mayhem.
Yeah, and we've seen Zebo play Widowmaker in the past. He actually is a pretty decent Widowmaker, so he can definitely open up some space.
Okay, so the Mayhem are testing this point. They're trying to pull the Dynasty off the high ground. They almost gave up a tick. Munchkin actually goes down in doing so. Perhaps the Dynasty have given too much time to the Mayhem to make this happen. They get a tick! That's not supposed to happen at all. And still, they're going to push on.
And now you've created some space for Zebasai because you force this fight on the point. This is going very well for the Florida Mayhem. They get a D-Mech on the Zephyr. Tavik picking up another kill. So it looks like the Florida Mayhem should be able to take point A very fast.
We're going to be poring over that clip a little bit in the future, I think, because the fact that they get the first point against a team like Seoul Dynasty without having to use an EMP is astounding. It was a mistiming and possibly even miscommunication from Seoul. Perhaps we are starting to see some of the weaknesses, the cracks in their armor. The Mayhem have already moved on to the second point. They're trying to use this momentum. They know they're on a roll. EMP's going to be available for Tvik, but he backs away, not wanting to use it yet. He may sneak in from the lower levels. It's trading here. Ziffer getting himself desuited. Swoosh, ooh, almost too late on getting out here. I don't know if he's actually going to make it. He does, but only just.
Yeah, they lost Zippe at the beginning of that fight, so not going to go in without the Mercy. Invest any ultimates there. Very interested to see how Tvik decides to use this EMP. It's quite difficult when you go into point B because you can spread out so far.
So open, yeah. It's much better on point A for sure.
And now it's like you have Toby with Valkyrie, you have Jaehong getting very close to Transcendence. If you don't connect with either of those players, they can just use the support ult to come in, kind of negate the effects of that EMP.
Zephyr saw the translocator, he heard it being put down perhaps, and he sprayed the doorway, and he revealed Tvik in doing so. This might actually make things hard for the Mayhem to make a proper push here. Aggression from Seoul Dynasty here, but Toby goes down early. This might be the opening they're looking for here. Seoul are kind of unready for this one. Tvik's going to be waiting on this EMP for Jaehong to get out of ultimate, but he doesn't quite connect it. He doesn't get rid of the shield off the Zenyatta, but it may not matter at this stage. Zebasai has pole position, he has high ground control, no one's contesting him right now. He's in a great position to do damage, he just needs to connect these shots. Dragon Blade for Fleta, he needs to try and break the deadlock. Jaehong was still sitting pretty safe back in the corner, and you better believe this guy's going to deliver. He found Zebasai and Zulpe there with those 2 kills. A fight that any other team would have lost. The Dynasty dig their feet in and hold.
Well, it's because Toby's allowed to come back into the fight off spawn, use Valkyrie and get in and get those 2 reses. Brings Jaehong back into the fight, Fleta as well. You have to wonder, you use the EMP, you know Toby's coming off of spawn. Why not try and spawn kill a little bit of your Tvik, get that EMP on him? Then there's no Valkyrie in that fight.
I mean, you talked about it being hard to get an EMP on people on this point, and you're right. You could see the Jaehong in that clip. That was seconds after the EMP. He still had all of his shields, which means it wasn't a successful use of the Sombra ultimate. However, 2 ticks in that fight to the Mayhem is a huge start for them.
It's still a great fight for the Mayhem. See Zebo go over to Lucio, so you're not going to be running the triple DPS here for the Florida Mayhem. This fight completely over. Seoul Dynasty take that one with relative ease. Me, Florida just trying to go in, get some ult charge, trying to force an ult or 2 out from the side of Seoul Dynasty.
The problem is that Seoul aren't going to give them ultimates for free. No. You are really going to test it, even though they're already on 2 ticks. And they're at great risk of losing the round or the round being over if they stay up the point. It's going to be hard to draw these out of Seoul. They know that Florida are going to be trying to force them to use ultimates in bad timings.
And I think you're looking at here how Florida gets Fleta out of the high ground. We've seen Jake do this a lot. Noan, the Junkrat on this map, gets into the high ground. And just so much area to now, right? As soon as they know which side that Florida's going, he's just able to spam these chokes, and you can't push on through.
Sitting Fleta up there forces the Florida Mayhem to try and play from this left side where Fleta's standing right now, because it's the only position you actually have a decent viewing angle to try and see it. And this is what's happened. Now the Mayhem need to play on this side up in that choke, but Fleta's more than happy to sit here. It's amazing AoE damage potential for him.
And you see how you play. Zephyr was up there for a quick second. No, he uses the defense matrix. You can't land any shots on Fleta.
How do you get rid of it?
In that high ground? I mean, you dive in, you have a ton of just damage right in your face. As you see, it's going to be Fleta using that rip tire.
Oh no.
Takes out Zippe as he's using Valkyrie. I feel like you're relying a lot on Tvik to get up there.
Toby! Yeah. That's so nasty. 3 players down from Fleta.
Well, this is what happens when you don't go up there and take him out.
Oh, Zebasai now trying to avoid almost certain death. Okay, so Zulpe, obviously he uses that Valkyrie, he tries to get us some safety and not be too close to the ground, but his real threat was up on the rafters. He hits him with the Riptire, and then he gets no resurrects out of that Valkyrie. It's essentially an ult that's gone to waste.
And you can't go after him with a Dragon Blade here, because just think about how risky it is, right? I mean, Tvik can start...
He can put a trap in front of him.
Well, I mean, he can put a trap at his own feet, right? As soon as you just get in to mine and trap to your feet, yeah, you can't not see it at all. So they're going to have Manitin get up towards that high ground, try and blast him off, which they do. He puts down a trap. You have to dedicate so many resources that by when Tvik and Manitin are going up top, there's no protection for the supports in the back. They lose both of them right away. It's been very difficult for the Florida Mayhem to get any type of pressure on the Fleta up top. They demech Manitin, they'll leave him as Baby Diva, let him walk back to the spot.
Okay, so I feel like we're seeing the beginnings, though, of the Mayhem start to figure out what to do against this lineup for the Dynasty, right? Get up on those rafters and try and shake Fleta down, but it's never so simple. Fleta, as he falls, just laconically lobs out a bear trap. It catches Manitin, and all of a sudden, there goes half of the Mayhem's mobility on that point.
And you notice he has Toby damage boosting him most of the time as well. So they're going to lead through here with a sound barrier and the Dragon Blade, and they finally get Fleta. It's a big kill, and they get Toby with a pulse bomb.
You have to use these ultimates. The Mayhem know they have to. Just get a little bit of time alone on the point is all they need. But Jaehong, who's on him? Absolutely no one. He's sitting safe, but Zebasai's going to fall. Manitin got de-suited from his hand, and I think Swoosh is going to try and escape this one, but again, it's tough. It's not even safe up on the rafters here. Swoosh a couple more, and he'll be a done deal, and Jaehong was more than happy to sit back. Wait for his chance to come forward, and Logix just gets blown up. You know what? It's not even a crazy close game. So I get it, but that kind of stuff gets me excited. You need to deal with Jaehong but there are so many threats on the side of the Dynasty. Once they dealt with Fleta, the Mayhem had already used half their ultimates. What do they have left for Jaehong?
They use Sound Barrier, Pulse Bomb, Dragon Blade just to kind of get on through the door. Jaehong did use his Transcendence during that fight, and then he just backs on up and just able to land those Discords at range and then just have his teammates, you know, put down some damage and him just be able to lay down a bunch of shots easily. So you see they go with the, oh, that was beautiful. So they had Manitin and Tvix jump onto the high ground, move him down, Logix comes in, finishes him off.
Pulse Bomb here from Munchkin could be deadly. He needs to stick this one. He gets on the back of Manitin there. Tvix dashes through, avoids getting blown up by it. It doesn't even seem to, no, it's not even a D-suit on Manitin there. Munchkin's going to be brought back for a second bite at the apple here, but Zephyr is going to get taken out himself. Zupe falls to another Riptire while he had Valkyrie active, if I'm not mistaken. Again, another complete cancellation of that Mercy ultimate. That's so crucial to Florida right now. Jaehong again, guess what? He may as well have a tea party. He has all the safety he needs because the Mayhem are stretched so thin. Just trying to deal with one or two threats on the side of the Dynasty, that someone like Jaehong can just sit back and continue to have huge impacts in these team fights.
And there's so many spots, right? When you're using your Valkyrie, obviously flying in the sky, healing the rest of your teammates, where you can run that Riptire up the walls into the rafters here, right? It's easy to get it towards that high ground. You have Zephyr getting close to a sound barrier, just get to here. So you're probably going to see them engage with that sound barrier, try and get a good use out of it. There it is.
Okay. The entire team benefits from the sound barriers, but that's the start they're looking for. Manitin once again gets stuck. This time, Munchkin actually finishes the job. So he gets in now in a mini diva form. Who's he hunting for now? Wants to probably finish Manitin off. He sees Zebo, who's low in the backline, but Fled is always going to be there. Zupe, again, another attempt at doing some work here on this Mercy, but he's constantly being cut down. He's getting no freedom. He can't even play the game, Matt. And Munchkin now will continue just to spray. I know it's hard to watch. This guy likes to flick and dodge around, but that's going to be it. The Mayhem have run out of gas, and they may have run out of it after the first fight, Matt. There's 2 ticks and nothing more.
So look, they had a tremendous first push, did Florida, right? When they get to point B, though, they couldn't, I mean, they made a decent amount of progress. I mean, you saw where that tick was, just a little bit before, you know, able to take the point B.
Oh, it's like 90% or something.
Yeah, it was about 90%. But it's just that Junkrat up in the high ground really caused a ton of problems for them. They started to figure it out, but I think it was a little bit too late.
But again, like, we start off the fight watching from Fleta's perspective. We see him get knocked down, we see him get finished off. Credit, I have to say, credit where it's due. Manitin goes up, we see Logic completing that kill nicely.
Yes.
But then, what are the Mayhem focusing on? They're moving towards the main point. The whole time, Jaehong's been rubbing his hands together, you know, in the quiet of that right-hand room. He's not being pressured, so not only can he come out and use Transcendence if he has it, but he can just sit back and do so much damage. You can see what he did, 3 kills in a fight when he was unattended. It's almost like you need a very strict flowchart or hierarchy build up when you're trying to attack this team. And if you miss a step, one player on Seoul Dynasty, if they're unchecked, just one, can completely unravel your entire approach.
So when they go up top to get Fleta out of the high ground on the Junkrat, you know, you had Manitin and Tvik going up top there, but a lot of damage coming out from Junkrat right away. You know, and some mines in their face. They can't exactly dive all the way into, like, yeah, he did shave.
Damn. Spell gun.
So that's what you think about while I'm making my point, is you're just staring
sorry,
at
no, sorry. I was looking at you actually
shaving
thinking what you'd look like if you shaved.
No, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen here. But when they go into that high ground, like I was saying, there's just a lot of damage coming out of Junkrat. So Tvik on the Genji, Manitin on the Diva can't exactly just keep going into that backline to get the supports, because those guys are pretty weak. They have to back out a little bit. Tvik picks up that 1 kill on a Fleta, then doesn't just dart into the backline, right? Maybe that's where they need to have Logix. If he's going to be the one that takes out, finishes off Fleta, he needs to keep on going, go after the supports.
So now the third of our Widowmaker players in this series already for the Mayhem is going to be Logix to step up. This allows Tvik to play the Junkrat here, and this is very much that anti-dive composition. This is the composition that the Philadelphia Fusion sort of ran themselves into time after time in their harsh loss last week. And Seoul are still playing with a Sombra. They want us to hit that point. They've got Jaehong on the Moira.
Yeah, and Moira's going to be very effective here because there's no Diva on the other side to use that defense matrix, eat up those damage orbs she can throw out. See, Manitin drops down the Hog. He's able to get a hook to get Munchkin early, so you lose a decent amount of damage that you have out of Seoul Dynasty.
Okay, so playing this room kind of denies the enemy Widowmaker any presence, and you're kind of, you know, playing around the fact that your Sombra's going to hack the Mega here, but you're also really susceptible to Junkrat. So Tvik can get so much free and easy damage in here. You can see a lot of those ultimate tickets are already quite high for the Mayhem.
Yeah, they need to finish off these kills though, because Jaehong's going to go Coalescence very fast, and Fleta's going to get an EMP as well. It's going to be Seoul Dynasty forced to back out here as
what's up, man? Yeah, you want some quiet time?
Gonna
some time to think?
Gonna heal himself out here.
Knows that he's contemplating the stars.
Oh, maybe he's not that safe. You see Zippe coming flying out on the Zen. He's going to go back inside here.
That stagger's nasty.
Yeah, that is huge. So now Seoul Dynasty going to have to wait for Jaehong. He did have a coalescence here. And now, no, denying them that area, that bottom room, they're not able to build up towards that EMP.
Jaehong was out there looking for Krypton, by the way, trying to find his way back home, you know.
So now we have a little bit of a slow pace to start of this game. Florida, you have a lot of ults coming in the next fight. Both support ults, plus a Riptire, you're going to have a whole hog as well.
Ooh.
One player goes to the point there for Seoul, trying to force some members of the Florida Mayhem down from the high ground, and Logix takes out Toby.
Yeah, crossing that gap there where Toby just fell down is tough when you don't have a tank, a shield tank, I guess. Zephyr now forced to back away, getting hooked in, always makes life hard for him. He can't block a hook with defense matrix, by the way. He's desuited, so, you know, very indignant. Zephyr's going to try and, you know, accost someone on the side of the Mayhem and try and get some ultimate percentage, but he's going to drop down. That's a good result. Get rid of the Mini Diva just as she's about to get back in the suit. And Florida are doing a good job of shaving the seconds off the clock.
Seoul Dynasty has built up a ton of ultimates here, though. You have the Coalescence still. You're going to have Sound Barrier. Kuki, Jaehong, and Munchkin behind enemy lines here. So
you still feel good about these ultimates up against Florida's?
We'll see if the pinch comes in. I mean, Florida has that Riptire, Whole Hog, and you have Swoosh with that Supercharger. The Orisa ultimate just gives that damage boost to everybody.
With that bongo fan. Oh,
Logix.
First pick already.
Picks,
and just all this work of Seoul trying to get into the backline. In fact, they might commit to this fight because of the EMP. You can see Munchkin's already jumping on Zuppe, maybe getting positioned, but he was so low in HP. Zephyr's going to fall now as well. Logix is starting to step up here on a very important stage. Jaehong only gets a supercharger with the use of his coalescence there, so it's safe to say value not achieved. Kuki gets caught out. Jaehong's got to be careful not to get staggered. And this is not a great look from Seoul right now. It's not working. They've used a couple of ultimates in that fight. They're going to be relying on an EMP sound barrier combo, but Florida still have so much to work with.
Logix has been huge in the second half here for the Florida Mayhem. Saw stats, I believe, 8-0 right now. And just these first picks early in fights, they allow you to hold on to a lot of these ultimates. And right now, Seoul Dynasty in a lot of trouble, Mitch. You see Jaehong will go over to the Widowmaker, so you get a Jaehong versus Logix Widow battle. It's Fleta still with this EMP. Fleta needs to make a huge play and get a lot of value from this EMP.
Okay, Logix misses the opening shot. He was trying to get rid of one of those Seoul players, but now he's going to have to deal with just getting some damage off from this side. But Munchkin's already found two. Swoosh and Sebo to go down. Logix is going to get pressured. Just a little opening is all the Dynasty need to press forward now. Devik gets his one kill of that fight there. Fleta did use his EMP already, though. A defense matrix is going to make him a very sad run. The Trash Mouse is not able to get any damage done, and the Mayhem are going to be shunted off that first point. Finally, Seoul get on the move here. We're down inside 5 seconds, but now they get that 4-minute boost, they're ready to roll.
It's incredible they're able to turn fights like that in their favor, because Zebo doesn't get hit with the EMP. He actually is able to get his Valkyrie out, and then Munchkin just mows him down. They take out out 3 players there.
What Seoul did right, though, Matt, is that they went for the Mayhem. Instead of trying to get onto the point and sneak on there, they actually got aggressive. They took the ball by the horns, and they want to find out, even though they're using Sombra aggressively.
Well, especially because when they have the Orisa on the side of the Florida Mayhem, if you get behind her shield and just dive on her, make her look all different types of directions, it's fairly easy to take out.
She's not very mobile, right? Super susceptible.
Not mobile at all.
Fleta's on the point. More than happy to face down Logix, but now it's going to be Zuppe with the Transcendence. Logix won't be benefiting from this at the moment, so he is still a bit vulnerable, but Fleta, kind of bigger targets to look for here. He doesn't quite get up as high as he would have liked. A bit of burst damage is going to force him to respect here the big monkey that's trying to pressure him down. Again, a couple of shurikens in there, but we're noticing that Fleta's not really been able to find his targets. Now with a bit of help, though, he's found Swoosh away with shuriken, claims the life there of the Winston player. Devik hoping to get something with the Riptide, but it doesn't work out, and now Seoul are starting to turn a drop of water into an absolute flood. Manaton desuited there, gonna be taken out surely in the next few moments. This seems to be it for Seoul. They found their rhythm. They don't even need ultimates in this fight, Matt. That's what Seoul is down, and they play it safe. They play it cool, calm, collected, like only they know how. That's that second map now to fall again. Took them a while to figure out what they wanted on that first point map.
Yeah, Florida did look good there on Horizon, but Seoul will win it in the end. They dove in there towards that later part of the map, and then you saw Zuppe use that Transcendence. Seoul just backed out a little bit, waited for it to wear off, and then just dove in deep on the Florida Mayhem.
Well, this is some moments here. Fleta denying Zuppe a lot of his potential to get healing done. The Mercy play for the Mayhem left a little bit to be desired now. With the second half coming around, let's hope there's improvements there to make it a series.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Omen by HP and by Intel. We're back live from the Blizzard Arena. Welcome back to halftime, everybody. I'm your host once again, Chris Puckett, here at the desk, and we are joined by Bren and Sideshow as we break down the action from our first half between Florida Mayhem and the Seoul Dynasty. Now, Seoul is coming into halftime sitting up top at 2-0, but this very could have been a 1-1 match, fellas. Let's start with Dorado and start with where things seem to be an issue for Florida to finish their attack. Starting with you, Bren, what did we see from Florida in their opening plays?
Yeah, in general, Florida looked like they didn't really have much cohesion coming into this. They had the game plan in mind, and we talked about in the pre-show about how they needed to shut down Fleta, but however, they just could not do it. The guy had ridiculous statistics coming out of this first map. Fleta ended up killing Tvik 5 times, whereas Tvik only killed him once. And again, with Logix. Logix managed to kill him twice, but Fleta ended up on top with 6 kills against them. So both the DPSs on Florida Mayhem made attempts to try and kill Fleta, to try and shut him down so they'd have an opportunity, but it just didn't work out.
Sideshow, coming into the match, we highlighted 2 new players. Guido and Zephyr were in the lineup for the first time during the regular season. How'd they perform?
I was impressed with Guido's performance, actually, or rather particularly out of the 2 of them. His Zen play, we talked a little bit about how you were shutting down Logix and how Neko from the Boston Uprising managed to do that. And I think that Guido got the better end of almost all of their engagements. On this first half attack, where Florida Mayhem were really trying to get into and around the side of Guido and basically the support line of Seoul Dynasty, Guido managed to get the pick off twice when Logix was trying to escape after an unfavorable engagement. Logix didn't manage to pick him once. So with Logix taking these big flanking routes and trying to get the picks onto the supports, this kind of style, as Monty alluded in the casting, is not it's not the best approach at the moment because the Mercy can get the Resurrect, but also it seems like a lot of these Zen players have stepped up to the point where they can duel Logix and get the better end of it.
What do you think of the Diva play so far from Zephyr, Bren?
Actually, relatively impressed, to be honest. Coming into this, Zephyr was never really a player that performed particularly well, which means we raise question marks. You know, what is he doing belonging in this Seoul Dynasty lineup? Because it's full of these fantastic players. However, I gotta say, I was pretty happy with the way he performed. He's definitely playing like a Seoul Dynasty player. Maybe not onto the same level of Zumbi just yet. However, he showed promise and flexibility. It gives Seoul options in terms of what playstyle they want to run.
All right, so Seoul takes map number 1. Now we're leading into Horizon Lunar Colony. What were your thoughts coming into this one, Sideshow?
Coming into this one, I think that Florida Mayhem had a couple of kind of pushes and strategies that hadn't worked out perfectly well. They have struggled a little bit in terms of their strategy and what they're bringing to each map. So I was surprised and pleasantly so to see that they performed so well, particularly on the defense, and they had a cracking opening, which I have a telestrator to run you through as well. So I'll run you through how this strategy runs on the Florida Mayhem attack. So let's take a look at where everybody's positioned. You can see here that Logix and Tvik being on the Sombra, are taking this big flank route. So they've come around this end and they are going to try and get on the point without anybody noticing them. At the same time, the tanks, both the Winston and Diva for Florida Mayhem, are positioned over here. And as soon as the cap time starts and Seoul Dynasty are forced to go onto the point, Winston is going to dive up the top. And then we're also going to have the Manitin, the Diva, come onto the point. So as we run this one forwards, you can see that as both Tvik and Logix flank from this right-hand side, they start the cap timer, 2 people on the point, so they've got it ticking up reasonably quickly. Munchkin on the left-hand side of your screen is forced to zip very quickly over to the point, use all of his blinks to get there, and just gets eviscerated by both of their hit scan prowess. Manitin and Swoosh come in off the attack, and then the last little point here, you can also see that Zebasai's got a really great sight line coming all the way down because he's just posted up as the Widowmaker in the back end. So this is a really nice set play coming out from Florida, something that they've been missing so far.
Absolutely. So we saw a 1-minute capture basically coming out of Florida. Instant success. You have over 7 minutes in your time bank, but you're unable to close out the game. There was one guy causing some serious problems on the second half, and that was Fleta up top with the Junkrat. Not the Widowmaker this time, Brent.
Yeah, not the Widowmaker, but still causing massive issues. In fact, a lot of these clips is going to be him getting these kills with the Junkrat Riptire onto the ulting Mercy. So taking that Valkyrie out of the team fights every single time. Zupi just couldn't seem to get it off consistently and actually win the team fights with it. You can see here, he's going to be making these plays all day long, mainly down to his team helping him with positioning, but he was making plays like this consistently throughout the entire match.
And we talk a little bit about plans from Florida Mayhem. And with their switch over here, so that Zebaside's on the Lucio rather than being on Widowmaker as he was at the beginning, this team looked like they didn't quite have a plan of how to force out ultimates, get past the Junkrat, and have a clear entry into this second point. So maybe Florida Mayhem, you know, on their whiteboard have managed to chalk out the team strategies for the first point, but haven't quite cracked the B point yet on Horizon.
All right, still got to work on that second one, and that seemed to be true with their defense as well, because Seoul gets held the final 30 seconds. They finally get on and take point A, and then point B went relatively quick. What happened with Florida? How did they fold after it looked like they were going to be able to tie up the series one apiece?
Yeah, I think, again, it came down to them having a plan and a structure and being able to execute on it. Logix was performing incredibly well on the Widowmaker. We've seen this kind of performance from so many different Widowmakers on Horizon Lunar Colony. When you've got those big sightlines, it's so easy to get work done.
Yeah, to add on to this, there was a lot of synergy being made in play, basically with Orissa's Halt, but also Logix's critical hit percentage on that Widowmaker was absolutely crazy stuff. That's Ryu Jae-hong. That's not Logix just yet, but we will get to him in a moment. But still, Logix, he was using the Halt to sort of line up his headshots, and he had crazy statistics on that first hold, and it was getting a little bit sweaty there for Seoul Dynasty, to be honest, on that first attack, because they couldn't seem to crack it.
And we did see some numbers there from Ryu Jae-hong. I believe he's the only player. How many players have been in every single game? Is it 3 now still?
Yeah, I think it is. They have this kind of core of Jae-hong and then Munchkin and Fleda that rotate around, and with the big DPS advantage that they have over most teams, why would you sub these guys out?
All right, well, Toby sat the bench a little bit. We'll see how much more of the Seoul Dynasty will be in the starting lineups. Second half here, let's spin the positive now for Florida Mayhem. You're down 0-2. You're going up against the juggernaut of the Overwatch League. What else do you want to see from this squad, knowing that they can go back and watch the VODs and review for their 4th match later in the week?
Personally, I would like to see Tvik have slightly more aggressive positioning. So we talked about big plays from this guy, and he has the skill to be able to pull them off. We've seen it in the past from him, but he needs to put himself in more aggressive situations, I think, when Logix gets shut down. And I did like the switch from Logix moving over to the Soldier 76. That opened up a little more space for Tvik.
For me personally, I gotta say, I'm a big fan of them basically trying to avoid Fleta now, because they've shown when they try to bring him down and try and focus him down, it doesn't work. And now they need to come up with a new game plan. I'm thinking maybe start to focus down the tanks of Seoul Dynasty, take them out, because the support backline of Seoul Dynasty is almost as equally dangerous as Fleta himself. So the tanks, I feel like, is where they need to start focusing into these next few matches.
All right, 2 maps are done. We have 2 more to go. When we return from commercial break, we'll be heading to Oasis. You don't want to miss it. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places.
league that offers opportunity for talented competitors to test and push our assumptions about how the game is meant to be played.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming at you live from Los Angeles, California. Welcome to the Blizzard Arena.
That's right, Matt. We're into week 2 of the Overwatch League, and already it's been just an absolute blast. Quite a far cry from the LAN events we used to get for Overwatch back in the day. Definitely seeing a new standard here. Let's talk about this match. Okay, look, I'm watching social media. I do interact with some people, and a lot of people are saying to me, like, this obviously Solar trolling this game when they're not trying or whatever. I actually reject that opinion for multiple reasons. Firstly, of course, is that this Soul roster is highly mixed up now as well. We don't know what their practice regime is like, and you can still use this as an indicative idea and also for benchmarking on a team like Florida. Okay, it doesn't matter who's playing, it matters what they're doing, it matters how they're doing it. And when people say that Seoul give up a tick on Horizon because they're trolling, no. They give up a tick because they don't expect there to be 2 players from Florida trying to backcap instead of 1. Bear this in mind, and let's now take this next match because we get Control, Matt, far more of a fundamental brand of Overwatch. Team fight after team fight. It's all about setting up, engaging, and finding the right targets.
And this is where Florida has looked quite well on the Control maps. They're able to play a little bit more aggressive. You know, they're very mechanically skilled, right? With, you know, a great Tracer player like Logix, and then Tvik and the numerous heroes he can play. And they could see, you know, maybe Tvik comes out with a Pharah here on Oasis. There's some very good Pharah points, so they do have a lot of options here. Does the Florida Mayhem?
Yeah, okay. Logix McCree was also one thing that we saw that worked really well for them on this particular map in the past. We're not playing City Center, by the way, guys. Just who's wondering, we're going to be playing on Garden here. So yeah, seeing that McCree from Logix is good. He's been quite consistent on that so far. It hasn't always been enough to make the big difference, but yeah, different look we're going to be seeing here. We're going to be probably seeing that Zenyatta with the Lucio thrown in the mix.
Well, I was going to say that's a huge win for Florida as well. You can get Zebosai off the Mercy. You know, you can bring him back to Lucio. That's really the support that he feels the most comfortable on. And you can see, you know, what Florida, you know, looks like at their strength. So looks like now Florida Mayhem obviously still some time to make some changes. Looks like they'll be running Lucio Zen. You have Logix playing McCree. I wonder, you know, Tvik playing the Pharah without a Mercy here. You know, Fleta will have Jaehong playing the Mercy. That'll be a huge difference. Zebo goes over to Mercy there at the end, so they get the speed boost from the Lucio, then they go over to Mercy.
Best of both worlds, I guess. They'll try and make something happen with that.
Wow.
Tvik finds Fleta, so somehow he manages to pick him off. Mind you, Fleta doesn't have a... well, he actually had the Mercy of Jaehong and took a lot of damage. He might not have been with him at the time in the rollout here, but this is a great start from the Mayhem.
That could not have gone better for the Florida Mayhem at the beginning. Tvik goes right up into the sky, hits a shot on a Fleta, takes him out. Then they get a D-Mech on the Zephyr. I feel like, you know, once you lose your Pharah that early, like, we rarely see that kills that early into the course of a game. Definitely kind of a little bit of a shock there for Seoul Dynasty. Florida takes the point here with ease.
If you're a true Overwatch fan, you really want to look very closely at how the Florida Mayhem try and use some aggression and now use this McCree that they actually have control of the point, which is, in my opinion, where he can be strongest. Zupe and Logix both go down early on, so Fleta opens up with a fantastic salvo of rockets towards that high ground. Now he's going to look for Tvik, who's obviously not being attended right now by his Mercy. Zebo's going to fall to Munchkin here, and it's all the damage being done on the ground. Fleta's hardly had to do anything.
So you saw from Fleta's POVs, firing rockets in that doorway, where he saw Logix playing, I believe it was Zupe as well, and then it's Munchkin going around that backside. As soon as he hits with 2 rockets, Munchkin comes on in, finishes those players off. So now Florida, they'll lose the Zenyatta here. Zupe will play Lucio, which is interesting because
this is super weird.
Because Zen is great against the Pharah to, you know, land those discords, make it a little bit easier to get him out of the sky. Now you've also lost your McCree, so you're really putting a lot of pressure on Tvik to win this one-on-one Pharah battle.
Yeah, a lot of resources being put towards Tvik, and Logix, of course, on that Tracer. It's just not going to be enough. Fleta, it's 2 with 2 rockets. It just doesn't get any better than that now. Logix trying to avoid the rocket barrage coming down. But Fleta has left the Mayhem an absolute desolation. And you know what? I don't care how many heroes you switch. I don't care if you have 12 players on your team in the game. Fleta taking them down from 2 already in that fight is going to set them up nicely. Look, there is no way to make that look real good for Florida, right? Seoul Dynasty on these last 2 pushes onto the point have been miles ahead.
When Fleta's hitting those type of shots, though, it's really difficult to do much of anything. I think what Florida's going for here, Mitch, is that they're going to let this Pharah Mercy battle in the sky go down, and they're going to speed boost on in and just try and kill the players on the ground of Seoul Dynasty. It'll be Manitin throwing a self-destruct over the top. He connects with Kuki. That's going to force the Valkyrie out of Jaehong here. Is Toby getting close to his sound barrier? We'll see if they invest this into the fight as well, as Soul, they do use... Okay, so they use their self-destruct there on Zephyr, but he gets taken out before he gets back into the mech. It is still Soul Dynasty, though, using the sound barrier, keeping some members alive. That is so filthy when your Pharah player can hit rockets like that.
All right, so it's going to be another 5 seconds before Tvik actually manages to clamber out of the dumpster, and 92, 93% is going to make it almost impossible for Florida to get to this point in full numbers. Seoul have just made them, well, look pretty embarrassed in this round, and I know they expect more from themselves, even up against a top quality team like the Dynasty. Let's see what we have. There's Zephyr gets desuited, Munchkin playing off towards the side. Who's Swoosh looking for right now? It's hard to say, he's so low in HP. Tvik's able to find Toby. At least there was some defense matrix used by Manitou to keep Tvik alive, but he drops immediately after the Dynasty are cut above, and it's just no surprise to see that now as Zebo dives deep in for a resurrect. He finds it there. Tvik's back on his feet. Now as he tries to gain some altitude, Fleta, again, his opponent has been restored, and him and Jaehong might opt to back out, at least for the moment, especially with Zephyr being a non-factor.
They use the Valkyrie of Zebo's side there at the end to bring Tvik back into the fight. They ultimately end up winning it. So you do have Lucio's sound barrier for this next fight. It's the only support ult on the table for both teams here, so you do have some more sustain coming out from the Florida Mayhem. Munchkin with a pulse bomb could be a bit of an issue if he gets behind enemy lines.
Manitou would be loving an opportunity here just to stop the advance of Soul before it really gets towards the point. Again, a self-destruct could really make life hard for Fleta. He needs to dump that altitude now and get away from the blast. And well, the bomb comes down sort of in front of the arch, so a lot of that AoE damage is kind of cut off there by the obstruction of the building. Manitou now has a bit of work to do to make up for that little play. He does get a sound barrier here that was Zupen looking at that one go, and he's found Kuki. The damage just thudding into the big, brawny body of that big old Winston. Mountain's looking elsewhere. Swoosh has found at least a decent opportunity on towards Zephyr, but that Pharah battle is still a factor here. It's still something to keep an eye on. Fleta now is going to get jumped on by Manitou. Finally, Tvik gets some help in that fight, and finally it goes better for Florida. D-suit here on Manitou though, and Tvik now has a bit of freedom to work here from up on high.
You do have Jaehong though using the Valkyrie, bringing Fleta back on in. Munchkin's going to take out Swoosh. And...
Oh, well, it's going to hurt in the morning. You know what? That's insult to injury, my friend.
Yeah, Soul able to take the point back here. Fleta using the rocket barrage takes out Zebo before he's able to get back towards the point. It'll be Soul Dynasty taking that one 100% to 86, so Florida did put up a very good fight.
And if you think that the Mayhem are going to be satisfied with that, you're wrong. They're absolutely not going to be happy with that. The amount of times that, you know, the combination of, I believe it was Jaehong on the Mercy there and Fleta, you know, that Pharah Mercy for the Dynasty getting so much work done, whereas Tvik and Zebasai looked a shell of what they were being shown from the Dynasty there. They really need to step up there again. And the fact of the matter is, I'm looking at the Mayhem and I'm seeing players like Zopair on things like Lucio. Why are the Mayhem twisting themselves into pretzels to try and get a reasonable response to their team comp here? You know, they're trying to get a Mercy and a Lucio in there. It shouldn't have to happen if you've got super deep hero pools or even just deep enough hero pools on these players.
Yeah, it puts you in a very difficult position. Does that. So it'll be Florida coming out here at the gate. Logics will be playing McCree. They'll go with a triple tank composition. So Tvik will play Zarya here in this setup. They'll have the speed boost from Zebosai playing Lucio, and then they're going to have Zupe playing the Moira, getting a lot of great healing on these tanks.
Jaehong again. You can see, even a player like him knows, as a Zenyatta, he needs to sit right back. In fact, you can see the three players here for Solar sort of splitting up. Maybe they can sort of sandwich here on towards the Mayhem as they push the point. Fleta was trying to do that, but he gets flashed immediately. Headshot by Logics. The McCree now with a bit of presence on the point. The bubble dropped down deep by Kuki, but he's low, so is Zephyr. He's going to get desuited now. It's clear to see. Swoosh and Logics are making some moves here on the point. And it might be a Florida to start off in control.
And I was going to say, Logics needs to play huge here in this scenario because you have Munchkin on the Tracer and you have Fleta playing Genji. Just going to go all out assault and dive on for the Florida Mayhem. They get Kuki here late, so it's going to be able to play a little bit further up here with Florida Mayhem with all these tanks, but Logics needs to go big, needs to take out these flankers. You're going to see Fleta actually go for Reaper here. Reaper obviously excellent against the tanks that the Florida Mayhem are bringing into the game.
Not necessarily excellent against the McCree, obviously, you know, at sort of, you know, as
close
across the point, yeah, I mean, McCree can do a lot there. Even McCree can just give the Reaper some room, cut his damage down and get, you know, a good little range for his Peacemaker to really do work. Coalescence here for Zope now as well. Unfortunately, maybe the KO Ken wasn't enough times because it's Zebo and Swoosh to fall down. He wasn't able to follow up with the extra healing. Now forced to back away. Use a Biotic Orb on himself and Manitou. And again, Florida are waiting now. They're trying to stall this point out for as long as they can. Because Zuba's going to fade through the Dynasty just to keep that one ticking across. And it's not bad. This is the kind of map where you can sort of keep reinforcing. And Florida have made a decent start. The question is, Matt, now that Seoul have control, this is where the Mayhem have struggled in the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, how do you break this if you are the Florida Mayhem? I think, you know, you're playing around to Vic getting this Graviton Surge. 86% counting. You're going to have a sound barrier here. You use Deadeye and Coalescence in the last fight. You also have Earthshatter here from Swoosh. We'll see if he can find a place to land this as Reinhardt.
Okay, they might actually have isolated Kuki here. Swoosh doesn't land the charge, so he gets himself a little bit out of position. You can see how punishing a mischarge can be for a Reinhardt. Self-destructing, Swoosh is going to shield up here, but it's just really him that needed to be protected. The rest of his backline has been jumped on by Seoul. While Swoosh was busy trying to block that Earthshatter or that self-destruct, should I say, the rest of his team were getting cut apart. He falls to a pulse bomb. It's a long fight, and now the Graviton Surge from Vic. We need to see a difference made here, and maybe we have it. Manhattan comes in. He actually gets a self-destruct kill on towards Zephyr, and that was when Vic went for the grab. It's been a long time, Matt, since I've seen Vic on this Zarya pick, and it's actually looking good so far for Florida.
As soon as the Transcendence wears off for Seoul Dynasty, you drop that grab down, you're able to follow it up with a lot of kills. So now for Seoul, you have your Valkyrie with Toby. You do have Fleta with that Death Blossom. You know, with Logic still able to flash, you know, the Reaper out of that.
You can interrupt it easily. There's no Zarya to bubble Fleta to prevent him from getting CC'd.
We'll see how they decide to use it. Here comes the push from Seoul Dynasty. Logic's able to take out Kuki at the beginning. That's going to force Toby to use his Valkyrie. You hear Fleta using that Death Blossom, gets nothing for it, but it's actually Seoul Dynasty who's able to flip the point back in their favor.
I think the damage was what was really important there for Fleta, trying to chunk down some of these big bodies. But Munchkin has already fallen to Logix. He needs to find more, but you can see how hard it can be to play with enemies so close as McCree. Logix is frantically flicking that crosshair around, trying to find his target.
Oh!
Zebo falls down, no sound barrier. He gets taken out while he's in midair before he can hit the ground and give his team the overshield. That might really hurt the Mayhem here because he's lost the ultimate. No chance to use it next fight.
They were going to try and engage back to the point was the Florida Mayhem. They were going to use sound barrier and then speed on in with these large tanks. Everybody's alive. And Zebo gets hit with a pulse bomb from Munchkin in the animation. You know, Lucio, he jumps up in the air, likes to, you know, amp it up, drop it down. And he gets taken out before he's able to drop sound barrier. That is a huge play there from Munchkin.
Just the Coalescence here for the Mayhem, but an Earthshatter's not too far away. Once again, Kuki starts off the party, jumps in, dome down. Fleta now looking to try and get onto some of these tanks, and they found Swoosh. Managed to isolate him for just a moment here. He's forced to charge away, and he does stay alive. Coalescence from Zuppe there are aiding that healing in a big way. Fleta now a little bit low, needs to do damage to get HP. That's how Reaper works, and he's found Zuppe. What a big pick off the more it goes down. And now it looks like Seoul are more than happy just to clean this one up. They've had enough of the fun and games. It's time to get the job done. Another Death Blossom from Fleta that doesn't amount to much, but you know what? It's more because there just aren't enough players from Mayhem left standing. That's going to be it. At 2-0. And Seoul Dynasty are still putting on a show for us here, Matt. It's dominant once they get control of that point. But I was just complaining about, you know, the fact that we're seeing the Mayhem try to bend over backwards to get decent team comps here. Now we saw a bit of a different look from them.
Yeah, you saw Vic use the Graviton Surge towards the end, and you already had 2 players who had fallen for the Florida Mayhem, but you know, Seoul just spread out so far. They knew that grab was coming. They weren't able to get anything out of it.
One more map left in the series. The Dynasty have already won this series. Then a chance perhaps for the Mayhem to save face. They will not be happy with themselves after their performance in this series, despite their opposition. I know they'll be hoping for better from themselves. Again, Fleta giving us all those highlights. Let's hope for a big map 4 right around the corner.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Omen by HP and by Intel.
The Florida Mayhem have been weighed, they've been measured, and they've been found wanting. This is the Overwatch League. It's not like a weekly tournament where you can sort of get away by doing crazy stuff here. Seoul can even take their foot off the gas a little bit and still show you up if you're not going to be ready. It's just as simple as that. Again, in all fairness, probably a little bit hard for Florida to expect to go up against this sort of particular lineup, but I don't think it really makes a huge difference now because they've got to sort their own issues before they worry about what the other enemy team's doing to them.
Yeah, I think Florida just needs to get on the same page a little bit more. We've seen some progress from them going into our last map. They do have, I know, the capabilities of potentially stealing this one. It'll be no subs on either side. Obviously none for Florida, only 6 members on the roster. Nobody coming in from Seoul Dynasty. They'll go into the final map, Eichenwald, with the lineup they've been running for most of this series outside of Game 1, where we saw Guido play on the support role.
No need for the subs here. Looks like they're happy with this particular setup now. And Eichenwald, again, an interesting map. And also many of the players on Seoul Dynasty, by and large, were members of a particular Lunatic Hive roster that kind of developed this new way of defending on this particular map as well, which did use Orisa, did use Junkrat, a few things like that. They got on that train pretty early on. They actually were also using Torbjorn, if I'm not mistaken. So if you see that, doesn't necessarily mean they are trolling, they might be, but my point is we've seen it from them before in Apex, of course, where things were just as serious as here.
We see them run Torb a decent amount on Numbani on first point on defense, right? You'll have Toby play Torbjorn, they'll have Jaehong go and play Ana, and he's one of the best Anas, if not the best Ana in the world, able to just keep everybody up alive. Without any other terms of support. I mean, with Torb, with all the armor, you can kind of run him as like a little bit of a secondary support. A lot of damage comes out from the turret, but don't think we'll see it here on Eichenwald. No. Never know, but I mean, maybe you can see it here on first point.
One thing I would have loved to have seen, and maybe there's still time to see that, is actually the Ana battle between Zupe and Jaehong, because while I think obviously Jaehong is widely regarded as the best Ana in the world, Zupe, that's kind of his specialty. It's one of the big reasons why, previously this team under the Misfits name performed so well in contenders for Europe all those months ago. To start things off though, as we obviously take a fly through to the map, I mean, we might see some pretty intense fighting in that last room today. In our previous match, of course, it was quite the brawl in our Orange Bowl game for the week there, especially in those closer quarters. Seoul on the defense here, it's probably nothing crazy. I do think that the defensive Pharah is quite interesting. Yeah. To sort of be playing here on this map, but Flat has shown he can do it all.
It's almost like if you were Seoul Dynasty and you wanted to play Junkrat, right? You can kind of swap out the tanks and you can play the Junkrat. I know maybe you play like Orisa and you play Diva, maybe you play Ryan and Zarya, you play like a Junkrat. I feel like you put Fleta on Pharah and he can obviously counter the other Pharah that you expect to come out from Tavik, but it's also kind of like the same thing with the Junkrat with a little bit more mobility with this comp where you can just keep spamming the choke with rockets.
Again, you still need to be careful if the enemy team wants to run something. Attacking Widowmaker, which we have sort of seen. Logic's, you can see him grappling up very quickly and taking a shot. Unclear to know if he really had a target in his sights, so he was just firing the warning shots here, but again, Florida trying to get a bit of an idea of what Seoul are going to be running here. This Pharah might confuse him a little bit. We'll see what Swoosh can find.
Yeah, I think they were actually trying to get a pick on the Fleta there early because you had Manitin playing Ana and you had Logix playing the Widow, so they were going to try and get one shot from the Ana into Fleta and then maybe the jump shot from Logix into Fleta. You would have been able to take him out.
Swoosh again. This is quite passive. He's not really committing to these fights. He almost gets Toby there. The damage was almost available, and there it is. Finally, Zebasai actually, I think, pulls out a Caduceus Blaster and gets the finish. So both teams have lost support, but Seoul have lost the Mercy at this stage. This means that Tavik potentially has an advantage in that 1v1 against Fleta, but that may not even be enough in itself.
I mean, both of the Pharahs in this type of situation, you can use the buildings for some great cover, right? And just kind of, duck around them. Wait until you have enough fuel in the tank, just kind of go over the top. Use the big jump shift ability to really get high over these walls. You see Tavik, they're just trying to put a lot of damage down towards the point. Has to be careful though. Fleta just hits these rockets so easily, it seems like, in this Pharah versus Pharah battle.
Yeah, and now Tavik's got to deal with the fact that his assailant is actually being pocketed at this stage. Lands one, lands two, actually gets Zebasai getting involved again. Very aggressive Mercy play coming out from Zebo, a bit like Neptuna, what we've seen from him so far. And this is a good spot for Tavik to do work here. Toby and Tavik, a 1v1 perhaps that we didn't need to see, but good for indicative purposes anyway. And Mayhem will get that first point there. Again, Tavik was able to essentially go untouched. Fleta was forced back early on by the loss of his Mercy.
And I like the way that Zebo played that. He used the Valkyrie, he was providing healing for everybody, but that Mercy versus Pharah battle, it's so important to get that early pick. You just get one of them out of the equation, and he's able to just pop out Caduceus Blaster, take one member out. Fleta now will go over to Widowmaker, try and counter Tvik's Pharah. He's able to get one. Tvik goes off the side of the map. You wonder when he decides to switch, because he has the Rocket Barrage. It's just all kind of a waiting game, right? Maybe you can land a big Rocket Barrage. No, most likely with the Rocket Barrage, you just kind of get shot out of the sky, or the DV eats it up. So he's going to switch right off of that, even though he does have the ultimate.
So this is the one spot that I've actually seen Tvik play Genji recently for the Mayhem. He obviously likes the fact that he can get up on the high ground pretty easily, because they know they need to really contest, get a little bit more to back their tanks up. Tracer doesn't have as easy a time of getting up there undetected, whereas, you know, Genji can obviously just walk straight up the walls. He was hit there on the ground. Fleta, that was like a vertical shot. The extra damage was going to be there, and the Mayhem are stumped.
The dive comes in from the Florida Mayhem. Kuki and Munchkin just go on the flank. You see where Kuki is there on the Winston. He just jumps right over that wall, and Munchkin just darts in through the door. And they just take out both supports from Florida. And, you know, the supports just left alone at that moment in time, right? There's not much they can do against the Winston Tracer combo.
Fleta, actually, that's a slightly more passive angle on that Widowmaker. Instead of playing the front build, he's playing off to the side. But look at this Transcendence getting forced out so early by the Mayhem.
Yes.
Soul the Mayhem.
Yeah, Soul does the same play. They jump Kuki right over the top. Munchkin comes in as well. They end up forcing that Transcendence out quite early. Now, Toby using the Valkyrie, he's able to get one. Fleta playing in a very different spot here with the Widowmaker. Somehow still alive. Just now he's got to get out. How is he alive?
That's what's supposed to happen. He just swan dived straight over the edge, head first into what will normally be certain death, but it looks like the Mayhem are so busy dealing with the other threat that Fleta can just, you know, jump himself over the edge and try and... Okay, he's just trying to fill up a montage here, I think. Just play overtly aggressive. Honestly, the Mayhem probably aren't going to expect that kind of play. I'll be ready for it. But still, it's weird. It's weird.
And towards the end of the fight, they do get a D-Mech on the Zephyr, but this is the position that Munchkin's playing, and then now we're talking about Kuki just jumping right over the top. Okay, so there's going to be Zephyr. He will fall. You're going to get the res there from Toby, so you get a D-Mech out of the equation. You get the mech right back up. Zebo in a very difficult spot here using Valkyrie. Anytime you're in that close quarters, you give it an easy line of sight for Tracer to be able to pick you off.
Again, he's ducking in and out of cover, though, because he gets his out-of-combat regeneration instantly, so he can sort of avoid getting some picked off. Fleta needs to headshot him or hit consistent body shots. It's almost impossible to headshot that Valkyrie, by the way. Fleta, what are you doing there, son? He gets a little bit caught up, tries to get a grapple over that slanted piece of masonry and gets caught.
Yeah, some nice movement there from Zebo, able to stay alive during that Valkyrie. I guess you kind of have two options, right? You kind of go out into the open, or you don't play in that close quarter area where Munch could potentially hit a pulse bomb, right? You hit on the one teammate, you get blown up. And no, stay safe from Fleta on the Widowmaker. I think that's kind of the play there.
Really interesting to see what Soul's explanation for this kind of playstyle is later on. I'm sure they'll be very polite, as they always are, but it hasn't made a lot of sense thus far. However, Tvik's got a Dragon Blade here. They've lost Swoosh to Fleta, who switched over towards McCree, something a bit different. A self-destruct is so devastating in this part of the map. There's very minimal cover from that kind of placement. The Transcendence from Zorbe comes in far too late. They've lost Zebo and Manitin. It's already a lost fight. You've committed a trans to that one. It's not going to pay off at all.
And now Seoul Dynasty, they have both support ults to deal with this Dragon Blade coming in from Tvik. So, you know, that Transcendence would have been huge, right? I mean, maybe you kind of extend that fight. You force Soul to invest some support ultimates in the next fight as well. Give Tvik the option to be the playmaker with the Dragon Blade.
I mean, Soul, yeah, I mean, Soul have both their support ults up now. I mean, we'll see if they use it. I mean, it's the last fight, so potentially the last fight if the Mayhem don't get set up. Hey, if this keeps happening, people get staggered. Okay, Munchkin going down, so maybe an opportunity here, an opening. Fleta is actually a little bit out of position, being forced onto the low ground, waiting on his flash cooldown. Swoosh doesn't seem to notice him, so Fleta's going to be able to escape. Despite Super getting another kill, Kuki's down, being pressed up now, but the payload's very close. Fleta from behind, though, he turns being out of position into being in a great flanking spot to use a Deadeye to good effect.
The card is still being contested here by Seoul Dynasty. Fleta just trying to work his way back. He was able to kill Tvik. Tvik using that Dragon Blade has Logic's right in his face. Looks like Toby may be the last one alive here for Seoul Dynasty. It'll be the Florida Mayhem pushing the payload, taking point B. Now with only 1:40 to go, can they complete the map?
Right, so Soul playing a little bit looser here, and the Mayhem just hoping to have an advantage again to throw themselves into practicing against this. By the way, if you don't impress Soul, they'll sandbag against you in scrims. They won't give you their all in scrims if they don't think that you can force them to. So for the Mayhem here, they really want to continue to test their mettle against the Soul, you know, that they might not normally get outside of this kind of match scenario.
See the Transcendence coming in from Jaehong, just as the push comes through here from Seoul Dynasty, just forcing Florida to back all the way out. It's going to be very difficult now for them to work their way on in through this choke. And now that Seoul Dynasty has control of it, at least for the Florida Mayhem, Tvik getting very close to his Dragon Blade. You can have the Dragon Blade plus Transcendence here to lead on through. And with this choke being so difficult to get through, that's why you see the Ryan Zarya combination come out.
Very much more of a brute force option. Not exactly with the subtlety of perhaps that dive composition. Kuking in the backline, what's he looking for? He's forced the transit of Supe already. Oh, you can't allow that to happen, but Supe had no choice. He would have died. There's only 35 seconds left. Soul put the Mayhem in a lose-lose situation, and Kuking's not done yet. Now the Primal Rage. You don't want to be stuck in here with a Primal Rage, Winston. Oh, that hurts. It hurts to watch. Swoosh and Seb are going to go down, and Kuking just cackling his way all the way to the bank, in fact. That is going to be the Mayhem having the floor wiped with them. And they're going to have one push map, but they don't have the time to set up for it properly. They've got to go now.
Once Tvik uses that Dragon Blade, he's so low HP, they jump right on his Zippe. They use the Transcendence. They got to go. Only 7 seconds left. Not a lot of time to put your shield up here. Maybe Logix can get a touch onto the point. It's Florida. With 1 second left, they will get the contest.
Swoosh getting buried here. Manatin's desperately trying to get some charge because he's had to run to the fight. He has him now to poke back and forth to build up that particle beam yet. And again, he's a long way away from a Graviton Surge. Swoosh is down, but Brestley's going to be brought back here by Zebasai. Manatin now peeling for his backline, but the damage has already been done. They're very, very looking worse for wear, at least at this stage. And Manatin can't get any charge right now. You can see he's probably feeling like he can't get a lot of damage done. And Zupe now goes for the Transcendence.
Yeah, there was a lot of healing coming in from Seoul Dynasty. They had their Valkyrie and Transcendence up, but Florida Mayhem able to stay alive for just a short bit. They're actually forced off of the payload there. I believe Logix, just trying to dart around and gets forced off of it.
I think you'll find it was maybe Zephyr actually just using a rocket boost to actually get that boop off. Logix was playing off towards the side, so I think it was Manatin was hoping just to get there. He'd be frustrated because he almost had that Graviton Surge. He could have built a decent push out of that.
Yeah, because both supports, I know, had used both of their ults there for the Seoul Dynasty, so that grab could have been big.
This hurts so much. Look at that straight away trans. And Supe's not dumb. He knows he has.
Look how weak Tvik gets there when he uses that Dragon Blade. It's so low. That's why he kind of went through that side room. They were only able to get one with it, and then Kugi just blocks any type of angle he would have had to come right back in.
We should probably have this on at a later time at night if we're going to show this kind of footage. That is so nasty. Of course, and that's what you're going to do in that position. And the Mayhem have no choice. If they don't want to barrel straight in, which they probably should if they've got that Reinhardt and he can cover up a lot of that aperture, but if they want to work in towards a small side room in the way that they did, then they are going to be incredibly susceptible to any form of AoE damage. And Winston in the Rock'em Sock'em arena also counts in that regard.
I did like how Florida looked with a little bit, of that Genji Tracer combination with Tvik on the Genji and Logix on the Tracer. I thought they were quite well. I think it makes it a little bit easier, potentially on Swoosh, right? To kind of, go after some of the targets. It allows Tvik on the Genji to get up to the high ground, roam a little bit more with Swoosh if you're going to have Logix go on these long flanks.
I think it also gives Logix, far more efficacy if he's trying to jump into the back line. Tvik is going to be there with him. It's a shame that we sort of don't see them playing that full-on dive composition all the time. And Tvik doesn't, he said he prefers actually not to play. He actually referenced Dreamcasper as a player who's very, very good at making Genji work right now in a meta where Mercy's able to heal up Zenyatta so much that it can make dive very, very difficult. But he says even that style of flanking wide and being super patient can also be very risky and put you at a man disadvantage. He just thinks that Dreamcasper specifically as a player is very good at avoiding that occurring.
So Florida on defense will go to the Risa and Roadhog as their tank combinations. Their hook and halt, great. And then you also have Tvik able to put down a ton of damage here on Junkrat. And when you get that hook and the halt combination, a lot of pressure on Logix though to deal with Fleta. Fleta could potentially come over the top, prove a lot of damage. You see right there, a nice boop. Just gets Manatin on the other side of that Orisa barrier.
You see Toby went very low though. Logix is hitting a lot of shots right now. Even though we're looking at Fleta, you can see Toby's health bar on that same screen and he's being pressured heavily. He'll probably try and flank around the backside here and again, hope that someone like Munchkin's going to follow up and finish off the kills from this damage he's doing. Looking for Zevo early here. Watch connect him into these shots. It's pretty darn hard to catch him with that Mercy. And Jae-Hong there got a little bit too big for his boots, playing that high ground in Tvik's face. Both Fleta and Tvik are one rocket away from going down there.
Tvik uses the mine and just jump right up into Jae-Hong's face, and then he's able to take him out. Fleta gets Tvik. Munchkin does fall, so not going to have.
There it is.
He's not going to have the Tracer there to finish off those kills. It's just a great combination when you have Farah putting damage up from above, then Tracer finishing the kills off. Oh, Zephyr tries to jump off the map. Madison says, "Come on back." Oh, there.
We've seen that a few times before. So the holds from Orisa combined with the chain hook from Manatin is actually emerging as a good way of dealing with an enemy Pharah if you don't have hit scan pressure on the ground. Because you can guarantee a hook and most often a kill on enemy Pharah, even if she has concussive blast. Hook him and book him. And if you have a McCree on your team, it gives you even more potential to clean her up. So, you know, if you're Flutter, you need to respect getting caught in a hole, which means you need to stay relatively high altitude.
Oh, that is sick. As you see, it's going to be Flutter using that rocket barrage. Toby uses the Valkyrie. It'll be a Deadeye that comes out. Logix takes out Toby during Valkyrie. Vizipe using the Transcendence. Logix just popping off here on the McCree, hitting a ton of shots. I wonder when we see potentially a switch off of this power play from the Seoul Dynasty.
Well, to be fair, Flutter doesn't want to hover too low as it is, right? He knew he had to go aggressive there for a barrage. There's no point doing it from up on high, but he knows if he gets too low, he's going to get caught from a Holt and chain hook combo anyway. So he probably feels okay. If you have a pocketed Pharah up high, a McCree's probably not going to be able to kill her unless he gets 3 consecutive headshots at extreme range, which is not easy to do.
And you also lost Jaehong at the beginning of that fight. It was Swoosh with a Halt and then a hook from Manitin that drew him in close.
Right, so he's got 100% hook accuracy again. Most of them, he's not hooking unless there's a Halt being used. So it's kind of hard to miss those.
and then it's also just the threat of the hook, right? Knowing the hook is available inside the Seoul Dynasty. It'll be Transcendence for Seoul. It'll be the Valkyrie coming out from the Florida Mayhem. As Florida looks to be holding on to the point here. See Toby, he will fall, get shot out of the sky. Florida has done a tremendous job here on defense. Just a minute to go for Seoul. Now you see Florida switch things up. He'll go off of Pharah. He will now play Genji. Jaehong will go over to Ana here.
Okay, now is there necessarily like a great reason for this? You're playing up against an Orisa, so you need to be careful. If your front line dives in behind that Orisa shield, you can't heal them. Or Jaehong can't heal them as Ana right now, so he needs to be very judicious about how he, where he positions himself. He needs to be off towards the side. He needs to try and get those biotic grenades either out before the shield goes in, or he needs to work around it. He doesn't have a ghillie suit, Jaehong. That's not quite the same thing, my dude. Oh, there it is! Oh, that hurts so much! He gets a biotic grenade in, he finds the gap between the shield and the wall.
See Kuki now using the Primal Rage. Stuck here for just a few seconds, but the dive comes on through. Florida, they were great at the beginning of this defense. They fall apart at the end once Seoul makes some changes. It'll be Seoul taking point A and locking the payload.
Stop the payload.
Ouch. That is so nasty. And again,
it's just perfectly placed that.
Right, and how good is it, by the way, when you've got a Tracer who's normally trying to finish off the damage from the Pharah. Now you have a biotic grenade thrown in, a Pharah to rain rockets down, and then a Tracer to finish off those kills if needed. It's like the beefed up version of that 1-2 punch.
It's even better at that point there. They had Flutter on Genji there, so they're just diving on in. Everybody gets the effects, on the positive side for Seoul Dynasty of the biotic grenade. And then on the flip side, Florida's denied all that healing, and you have the burst coming in from the Munchkin Fleta combination. They use the Riptide, they take out Fleta at the beginning here, and Logix gets a pick onto Munchkin, so not going to be able to do anything here for Seoul just yet.
Now, it's actually going to take quite some time for Seoul, even with 3 men on the payload, to get to towards the next stage. This is a very long climb, and they've only got about 1 minute and 45 seconds remaining. So this might still get close, believe it or not. The Mayhem actually had the answer to what Seoul were throwing at them. I love the quick switch, the Genji, the Ana coming in there. Love that we see these moments of brilliance from Seoul. Now Fleta's going to be a bit of a maverick here again. Look for some high-flying shots. Swoosh is not going to be too worried. A bit of a tickle there as it wasn't even a fully charged shot from the Widow. Fleta's going to get jumped on. Just gets away to the health pack, but he's going to be pursued. Swoosh is going deep for these kills. He thinks twice about it, though.
Yeah, Zephyr and Munchkin were able to force out that Transcendence, so coming through that backside of the castle. Munchkin still working behind enemy lines. Toby gets a res right in the middle of the street on the Kuki. See, it's just going to be the all-out assault here from Seoul Dynasty. They get Zipe low, they take him out. Players falling here for the Florida Mayhem. Coming into the next fight, though, for Florida, you will have your Valkyrie. You'll have Valkyrie plus Deadeye. Seoul Dynasty have both support ultimates. I think for Seoul, right, if you can get through this stage, get point B, with keeping on to one of those support ults, you're in a great spot, because you're going to have Zebo use the Valkyrie most likely in this next fight.
It's not fun to be McCree with Deadeye here. Look, see what they're doing? The Mayhem are pushing out because they know they get no value out of the Deadeye if they're forced to work through those very small chokes. So they're thinking about making the most of what they have right now. Valk's already out. Zupe is being rezzed up. Tvik actually gets Pulse Bomb killed by Munchkin, which should rarely happen if you have that recall available. He's brought back to life now as well. Swoosh is looking for Widowmaker, or is he? Back towards the rest of his team. He just sort of jumps through. He doesn't commit to any of these kills. He knows that he wants to push Seoul Dynasty away and force them to commit for what will be the last fight. 15 seconds left.
Florida does get off the payload here, though. They have to get on back. Vic makes it back towards the payload. Manitin as well. Manitin will get the mech. They lose Zupe. Now things, oh, it's a pulse bomb there from Munchkin. He's able to get to Vic. Takes out Swoosh. They will take point B. Zupe should come back into this next fight. If you're Florida, potentially to get one more crack at it, you're going to go Reinhardt, Zarya. You're going to switch to Vic here onto Junkrat, get a lot of damage. You see the golden box of victory there for Seoul Dynasty, not far away.
I don't want to be a party pooper, Matt, but you know, the Florida Mayhem, if they actually get here in time, which they will, they may not be set up. I like the use of the Reinhardt here, but Logic's get picked off. There was a split second, the shield was down for, and Fleta finds the kill. Now Seoul are going to go in. That is insane. Fleta forced to back away, or at least choosing to do so for the time being, because look, he's just set up on the payload. Happy as Larry, of course, and Swoosh falls to Fleta here. There's no one there. The Mayhem were close, at least to erecting some kind of defense there, man.
In that pick by Fleta forces Zupe to use the Transcendence just to keep Zebo alive, to bring Logix back into the fight. And after that, I mean, things just spiral out of control. They're forced to get back onto the payload. They have Munchkin in their backline.
It's unacceptable, though. You've got a Reinhardt in such small areas here, and you're getting picked off now. I'm not saying it's Logix's fault, but Swoosh did drop the shield. Logix may not have even been behind it. One of those two is true, regardless. Seoul are so good at identifying those small opportunities and just completely exacerbating them into these one-man situations of winning team fights. Kuki had a great map. It's great to see a different look for the Seoul Dynasty here, but that's all. Now off to a break, and we'll get the analysis following the break.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Intel and Omen by HP.
And we're back here once more, and I'm now joined by no other than Ryu Jae-hong from Seoul Dynasty. at them fans, yo. Ryu Jae-hong, you guys just won. Congratulations. Let's talk a little bit about the performance of your team. This was the first time we saw Guido and Zephyr taking on the big stage. How do you think they performed?
저희 축하드리고요. 먼저 이번에 팀이 정말로 잘 해주셨는데 기도 선수랑 제퍼 선수에 대해서 그분들이 하신 경기력에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시는지 얘기해 주실 수 있을까요?
일단 축하해 주셔서 감사합니다. 그리고 일단 기도와 제퍼 선수를 뭐 그동안 안 썼던 이유는 일단 최고의 선수는 맞지만 아직 저희 간의 팀합을 조금 더 맞추고 있는 단계라서 그랬던 거고 이제는 팀합도 많이 맞췄으니까 많이 나올 겁니다. 최고의 선수들이에요.
First of all, thanks for congratulating us on the win. The reason that Guido and Zephyr hasn't been coming out was because we're in the process of collaborating and working on the teamwork, and we are doing well on that. So you're gonna see them a lot because they're the best. Guido and Zephyr are the best.
All right. Does the audience agree? Of course they do, because Ryu Jae-hong is the one saying it. Now, one last question for you. You're currently undefeated. Is there any team who can bring that streak? No team is also a valid answer, by the way.
저희 팀이 이제까지 진 적이 없는데 혹시 우리의 이 무패 기록을 깰 수 있을 만한 팀이 있을까요?
개인적으로 없다고 생각하는데 근데 조금 휴스턴 팀이 걸리네요.
Personally, I don't think anyone can defeat us, but Houston is really good.
So, all right. Well, that was Ryu Jae-hong from Seoul Dynasty. Very convinced that they can continue their winning streak. And now let's break down the game we just saw on our analyst desk.
Thank you so much, Zoe. Wow, Ryu Jae-hong giving Houston a shout out. This team's 0-2. We're about to see them in our next matchup where we'll have plenty of time to discuss it. But for now, let's break down the action we just saw as Seoul comes out over top of Florida Mayhem 4-0. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Chris Puckett with Bren and Sideshow. And let's start here with Oasis. We knew coming into halftime, morale has to be low for Florida. You had so many opportunities on Horizon, but it was Seoul that walked away with the map victory. They came into Oasis, and we got a little bit of a treat with the Farah battles. What did we see as this map started to develop?
Yeah, Oasis is historically a pretty good map for Florida Mayhem because Tvik is so excellent at the Farah, but he got a masterclass coming out from Fleda here. Fleda dominated that battle on Gardens, hitting some incredible directs. This was unbelievable. 3 directs in a row, demolishes the opposing Farah Mercy combo, and then rains down that barrage from above. So fantastic performance from him on that stage in particular.
Yeah, and we've got some interesting statistics as well to bring out this a little bit later on as well between these direct Farah matchups. But overall, Fleta just absolutely dominated it. Florida had to adapt their game plan when they were coming up against Fleta on the Farah because they just couldn't focus in this Farah v Farah duel. Instead, they adapted it. They tried to focus onto the ground war itself. It didn't quite work out for them, and eventually Seoul manages to find the opportunities that they did. But if we take a look at the statistics for the Farah v Farah matchup, that would be brilliant because it can really highlight why Fleta was so dominant here against Tvik.
What did you see? Was it just direct shots that were landing for Fleta? What's kind of the difference when you're watching the Farah match for some of our new viewers?
It was pretty much the fact that Tvik is so used to the team style of Florida Mayhem is so used to having to focus on the Farah 1v1s, and the fact that Fleta was dominating Tvik so much in that regard meant that they had to adapt to their playstyle to something that they might not be as practiced with, which is focusing on the ground war. But it still wasn't working out because Fleta was hitting so many direct hits, because he was putting out so much overwhelming damage. I imagine it must have caught them completely off guard.
Sideshow, I want to ask you about the second stage. So we see Fleta winning the Farah fight, but in the next round, it's Florida opening up with control of the point first once again, and they did it using a triple tank lineup.
Yeah, and this is kind of an unusual setup from Florida Mayhem, mainly because their tank Swoosh is lesser known as a tank player, frankly, because he started as a Genji player in early 2017, came into this one, and he was able to run the Reinhardt to a fairly effective degree. and he had a pretty stellar performance to allow them to take the point.
We're going to keep the highlights rolling as we're trying to stay on schedule here. As we get into the Eichenwald, though, we had our eyes on Tvik. That was the player we wanted to watch from the start. We said, if you're going to beat Seoul, you have to stop Fleta. Tvik with a few of the highlights there on his far in the Genji. But overall, again, it's the Florida Mayhem falling just short. It seems that Seoul, they countered with the picks at the end of map 3. What was the difference maker as we went to Eichenwald?
I think general sort of cohesion team play. Seoul Dynasty, they like to stick with what they know, which is going to be the dive compositions. They didn't really stretch too far outside of that. Florida Mayhem, they tried to switch things up. You saw Tvik entering with the Pharah. They had some success with it as well. They tried a lot of different compositions. They were running with the Orisa Roadhog at some point as well on defense, as well as the triple tank that we did see them running on Oasis a bit before, which is good. It shows that they are starting to flex a little bit more, and they are flexible despite being a 6-man roster, which is what they need to do if they're going to start competing later on down the line.
Absolutely. Sideshow, we were talking about the supports coming into this matchup. Of course, Fleta, Munchkin, they're going to get all the love as DPS players, but the core of this lineup, it's built off of the back of their star support players.
It really is, and that was why it was interesting to see Guido come in for the first map and fill in. Actually, we thought he was going to be filling in the Mercy role, ended up playing Zenyatta for the majority of Dorado. And I think it's really interesting, actually, to look at the support duo for Seoul Dynasty, because they set up the core, as you were saying. They have a very passive approach to the game, really focus on making sure that everybody stays alive within the team, but also that the 2 support players stay alive. And you can see, we have a highlight actually of Fleta when he was playing Widowmaker on Eichenwald, was able to stay alive way longer than he should have done, because Toby's got the Valkyrie and he knows that the entirety of Mayhem, as this very aggressive team that have a singular kind of focus, are just going to try and take down Fleta. He gets juggled all over the map, but at no point is there anybody trying to flank. Logix isn't coming in around the back and trying to pin Fleta. They don't have any mix-up to their style. They are just picking a target and focusing on him, and it makes it so easy for Toby and Ryu Jaehong to just amp heals into that guy and keep him alive, and it wastes the entire dive. Makes Florida Mayhem way out of position.
All right, before we get to our player of the match, real quick, I have to ask about the new faces. Kuki, playing in the same role that we see Miro, who's normally in the starting lineup. Zephyr in the same role as Zumba, and Guido in the same role as Toby. What did we think of the performance of these 3 players today, Brent?
I mean, we discussed this briefly off camera, but across the board, I think we decided that there was no real difference. That makes Seoul Dynasty super scary coming into future games, because a lot of people are saying, oh, Seoul Dynasty, they're fielding these players, they're not taking this game seriously. No, they were playing just as well as some of the main squad, some of these permanent members. And the fact that they can bring that, and they've got so many flexible players, so many masterclass players, is the word I used earlier, is very much a scary moment for a lot of these teams as they're looking at Seoul Dynasty from the outside.
All right, well, it's time to name our player of the match, sponsored by Omen by HP. It's not Fleta this time. We went with the healer, the man that was in the winning interview. It's Ryu Jaehong, who showed us everything on the support.
Yeah, he did. He started on Mercy, which was slightly unconventional, allowed Guido to have a great game on Zenyatta as well. Jaehong has been a player who's just had fantastic performances all time round, and this Zenyatta play here, as he just dunks on a couple of players from Florida Mayhem. He can play almost any of these supports. We saw him with a big clutch here on Horizon. We saw him with a huge clutch on Ana, actually, on Eichenwald. With this perfectly timed biotic nade to be able to take point A with only 30 seconds on the clock. Switches to the healer, which is exactly what they need. Has such great coordination with this team. Great player.
It's so hard to name a flex support player in this league with as much prowess as Ryu Jaehong on all of these roles. Not many players can pull it out on the Mercy, on Ana, on Zen, and nameless other roles as well. He can flex to the DPS as well, which is another star point to point out here. But his Ryu Jaehong stats overall, again, just a fantastic player. He pumps out the damage, pumps up the numbers.
All right, Seoul Dynasty, our first team to advance to 3-0 at the top of the leaderboard. In our next matchup, though, we're going to see which of our 2 remaining teams will be the first to get a win in the scoreboard. Is it going to be the Houston Outlaws, or will it be the Shanghai Dragons? The third and final match of Week 2, Day 1, coming up after this. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Intel and Omen by HP.
Seoul Dynasty are still